At the end of the summer, the heat along the road faded, the light of the setting sun drilled through the gaps of thick clouds, the after-rime hung in the sky with a warm yellow tone, and the sigh of the wind brushed his cheeks, making Xiao Fei squinted with comfort. Through the car window, rows of towering buildings quickly passed by, and the floating thoughts were recalled by the woman in the passenger seat. Xiao Fei unconsciously showed a light smile to calm the other's anger, with two dimples. A small shadow appeared, looking younger than the actual age. What? Why don't you stay away from home? I'll see you later, Uncle Lu, too. Yao Fei looked at her son who couldn't make a word with a stick, very dissatisfied, and her charming face was stained with a little annoyance. Obviously she and her ex-husband are both able to speak well, so how come her son has such a dull temper? Xiao Fei lowered his head. No. Yao Fei, the mother of this body, even in her 30s, still has a charming face, only a few subtle lines on the corners of her eyes reveal her age. She is a flower that circulates in the upper class. She has no prominent background but has charming beauty and amorous feelings. This time it is Lu Zhengming, the real power controller of the Lu family, who many women are staring at. She is only 40 years old. A group of old masters appear to be particularly young. I won't remind you what to say later, but you don't have to be too restrictive. Although your Uncle Lu looks stern, he won't embarrass you as a child. You can answer whatever he asks you. Okay. She still reminded me worriedly. Xiao Fei nodded in accordance with the personality, but was thinking of Lu Zhengming, who he would see later. This time Yao Fei's new lover is a giant in the book world and the father of the male protagonist Lu Chen. By the way, you may see your Uncle Lu's son, Lu Chen, who is a few months older than you. Remember to call your brother. If he doesn't want to, call him a title he likes. In short, you can't discuss them, or I will send you back to your father, and never pick you up again. She didn't look very pleasing to this oil bottle son. Sure enough, when he talked about Xiao Fei's father, Xiao Fei's face turned pale. Yao Fei was very satisfied with the effect she had caused. She didn't want to be dragged down by this unused and ordinary son. Okay. Of course, Xiao Fei would call elder brother, but Lu Chen is a deep hidden person, just superficially responding. In his heart, he would never admit his cheap brother. If he did something that touched the bottom line, he would definitely not recognize him. On the surface, Lu Chen looked decathlon, with amazing self-control ability, and he was good at learning sports. He was called the last prince in the capital circle, but inside he was a deep scheming, treacherous and crazy person. Fortunately, as long as he obediently acts as a passerby, the hero will take care of him when he is idle. Why would he know this? Because he came across this world. He has no memory. He has been told by the system that he has become a vegetative in his own world, and his soul is recruited into the system to work while he is drifting. If he works well, he will have the opportunity to get lost memories and new life. His job is to enter these incomplete worlds and repair them. Looking back, it is a Jinjiang author who wrote many novels. These novels have become new parallel spaces by themselves. But because the author has been breaking updates, all have become sinkholes, so these spaces very unstable. He needs to enter these worlds to properly guide the plot, so that they can end smoothly, and then maintain the stability of the space. This is the first world he has come to, a novice on the road, when the plot hasn't started yet. This time, I can barely be regarded as someone who has had some shots in the book, a dull and quiet good student, his parents divorced at a very young age, and his father is a gambler, good at domestic violence. His role is easier to control, just talk less and show less expression, but this is understandable, but it is impossible for passers-by to have too much personality. In the story, he secretly fell in love with the female protagonist in the later stage and helped the male second. After being noticed by the male protagonist, he was expelled from the Lu family. Of course, in order to maintain the plot smoothly to stay near the hero and the heroine, he intends to choose these future things on the premise of not collapsing. Now, he and Yao Fei are on the way to meet the Liu family and his son. This is the first time he has seen Liu Chen and Liu Zhengming, but these trivial things will not be written in the book, so he can only play on the spot. In fact, there are many lovers of Liu Zhengming, most of them are kept outside, and only those who are particularly favored will be taken home. These women are also regarded by outsiders as candidates for future wife recognized by Liu Zhengming. That's why Yao Fei solemnly reminded Xiao Fei on the road again and again, for fear that her son's dullness would smash this meeting and make her lose the opportunity to enter the Liu family. Since Xiao Fei saw Yao Fei's face, she finally understood why she was favored. She was truly beautiful and charming. When the car arrived at the Huamo Hotel, I walked into the lobby. There was melodious music and elegant fragrance in the air, and the huge chandelier above my head turned with diamond-like brilliance. The mother and son met people just a few steps away, to be precise. Is Yao Fei's acquaintance. The man looks ordinary, but his eyes are kind, and his temples are mingled with a few strands of white silk, but he is neatly combed behind his back. When he looks at the person, he has an unmoving and majestic aura, which makes people speechless easily. Behind him 2 of his assistants stood a step away from him and waited, looking like a well-trained habit. Only the man asked gently, "Fei, why are you here?" Yao Fei smiled like a flower in an instant, and there was no shortage of words to please. Xiao Fei's eyes flashed. Of course, there will be no unrelated people in the novel, but in the memory of the original owner, Yao Fei is a beautiful flower, and there are not many people who picked her, and she has a high vision. All the gold masters are rich or expensive, and it seems that this is also the one they used to be. He just hopes that he will never be seen by the Liu family and his son. The predecessor is broken and the current is about to enter the room. No matter how he thinks, Yao Fei is too greedy. If it is not handled well, his mother's future days will be over. Yao Wen Fei is over, his mission will definitely be affected. But sometimes the more he didn't want to encounter something, he just encountered something. He felt a gaze enveloped here, and he couldn't help looking around, and no one paid attention to them. Okay? The direction is wrong. It's on the 2nd floor. Looking up, he was colliding with a smile that looked like a smile. The boy was calm when he was caught. He even hooked his lips to the flustered Xiao Fei. The boy's age was between a boy and a young man. Wearing a standard suit school uniform, the school uniform belonging to a private school looked extremely rigorous, but he opened the neckline, a little more unruly, with his elbows leaning on top, and his legs folded randomly. It was clear that the other party was about the same age as him, but his eyes seemed to hide everything. Xiao Fei's pupils shrank slightly, and he felt that the other party had understood his thoughts and hung his head in a panic. It was the first task after all, and he hadn't managed his emotions well yet. He felt that it was necessary to explore the uncontrollable accidents, and he could not help shouting in his head, "System, is it here? Is this the person in the plot?" A novel is a novel, and it will not be recognizable when it becomes a real person. His appearance gave him some guesses, but he didn't want to think about it. He forgot. The system said that it is only responsible for bringing itself into the world, and how to maintain it depends on him. Only when life is threatened and the situation is serious, do you need to press the emergency button in your brain to call for help. There are only 3 chances in a world. This is in order to let the host better integrate into the world. At the railing on the 2nd floor, Liu Chen, who was chatting with Wu Taihu, pointed a direction, "Is that my new stepmother and stepbrother?" Following the direction of his young master, Wu Taihu happened to see Yao Fei who was smiling with Ying Ying. Of course, he had been with the chairman of the board. Of course, he knew the most spoiled lover recently. Looking at the person who talked to her, they had investigated her a long time ago. Information, isn't that man Yao Fei's former benefactor? This woman is clever, throwing fishing nets widely. Is she willing to take the bait? But a woman who is too smart will often lose to her cleverness. Wu Taihu calmly retracted his gaze and said, "It's just a plaything in the chairman's leisure time. How can you be worthy of being your family?" Liu Chen glanced back at Wu Taihu, did not comment on this sentence, looked at the mother and son downstairs. It's really a bunch of mad bees and butterflies. He didn't seem to care, a little ridiculed. They won't be the first couple to settle in the Liu family, and of course they won't be the last. Do you still count on my romantic success? Can a sexual father one day leave a woman's belly? I didn't mean that. In my heart, the Liu family belong to the chairman and you, and the others are outsiders. Wu Taihu also realized that he had exceeded the rules, and he did not dare to profuse the young wolf master in front of him. Do your best to show your loyalty. Liu Chen suddenly approached. Wu Taihu did not collapse the expression on his face, and took a step back. The young boy's eyes always made people feel flustered. He looked at his father's special assistant. "Wu's special assistant is so indignant for me, it makes me think you want to change master." Wu Taihu helped a drop of cold sweat fall. "You can't talk nonsense about this kind of words. The chairman is still young, and your words are too cruel." Liu Chen smiled suddenly, his almost perfect face smiled somewhat childishly, the tense atmosphere just broke down instantly, and another cynical expression on his face. "What are you nervous about? It's just a joke." Before Liu Chen turned around and left, he left a sentence, "Go down and remind you, you should find your own position for precious flowers." Wu Taihu silently looked at the back of the boy's departure, thinking of what the chairman was worried about, and couldn't help feeling extremely troublesome. Xiao Fei was struggling with the identity of the person above, and saw Wu Taihu who was going downstairs step by step, and his nerves were tense. His guess just now seems to have been hit. Yao Fei is not really unscrupulous. It is always indispensable to be able to mix precious flowers among celebrities like her, but she puts all her thoughts on the prey, only observing the surroundings, but ignoring the upstairs. Xiao Fei grabbed Yao Fei's arm and reminded softly, "Mom, we should go." Judging from the interaction between the two, Yao Fei obviously got along well with her ex, completely ignoring the son beside her. Before she could reply, the man seemed to notice the boy next to him who could be completely transparent. His eyes were surprised. The boy had very long bangs, so he could quickly cover his eyes with a pair of spectacles framed on his face. He was thin and only taller than Yao Fei. Wearing high heels is a little taller. It can be seen from the countless eyes of men who read people. Even if except for glasses, the boy can only be regarded as more than beautiful. Compared with the brilliant Yao Fei, it is too inconspicuous. "This is it, your son?" Yao Fei nodded her head unwillingly, as if she didn't want to admit it. That's why she didn't want to bring Xiao Fei out. This son was not born like her at all, and was embarrassing to her from birth. It's not too ugly, it's just too ordinary, you can ignore it if you get stuck in a pile of people. What's the kid's name? The middle-aged man smiled gently, making people feel like a spring breeze. I'm still young, it's over 18, just look at Xiao. Yao Fei's words paused. Yu Guangzhong saw a familiar figure, and the same sluggish figure as her was Xiao Fei, who had noticed the visitor since just now. The image did not see everything she did just now, but said politely, "Ms. Yao, the time for your appointment with the chairman is approaching, and I will pick you up." This person is Liu Zhenming's confidant, and Yao Fei has been confused. "Why, how can I bother Assistant Wu, let's go up here." Yao Fei left quickly. Before she even had time to say goodbye to the middle-aged man, she pulled Xiao Fei towards the elevator. Wu Taihu then greeted the middle-aged man, "Mr. Yang is here to participate in tomorrow's online forum meeting. Isn't it? I met Special Assistant Wu by such a coincidence. I happened to have an appointment with Dong Li to have a drink together." The two smiled and greeted each other, as if they had forgotten the leaving woman together. Entering the elevator, Yao Fei looked at Xiao Fei thoughtfully. "Have you seen him a long time ago, that's why you reminded me. She seems to have ignored this inexistent son for too long, and is now observing him with a whole new look. Xiao Fei was still thinking that Special Assistant Wu was standing next to the boy, that boy is probably the male protagonist Liu Chen. As expected, it is no different from the description in the novel, whether it is temperament, appearance, or other, even better. The novel is written more realistically, maybe this is the parallel world that the system says will optimize itself. He nodded perfunctorily, but because of his honest look, nodding like this was not perfunctory at all. Yao Fei seems to have discovered the new world. This son seems to be not as useless as she thinks. Thinking of the scene just now, Yao Fei has a bit of sorrow. There is always a way to make that Wu Te can't help but calm down. The son said, if something like that just happens again, you must remind me in time, don't be like this time. You have to know that your mother and I have a good life, you can get rid of the previous life and get rid of you. Dad, you and I belong to the same country. She didn't expect this boring gourd to answer herself. At the moment of the elevator door, she was like a soldier about to go on the battlefield. Remember, please Liu Chen, he is the key to whether we can stay in the Liu family. In her opinion, she is an elder, and of course it is more appropriate to deal with Liu Chen than a junior. Yao Fei carried her son's arm in one hand, and stepped on the floor of Guangkejian to the dining place on the 5th floor. This is a well-known Michelin restaurant in Kunming, named Hua Mu Ting. Under the guidance of the waiter, the two came through the corridor. Outside the courtyard, each seat here is separated by a curved stone sculpture. The gurgling water flows above the stone sculpture, and the sound of clear water flows through the eardrums, like melodious music. The flowers and grasses are dotted with soft lights. This design pattern allows the guests who come to dine to have personal privacy and relax their mood. He really saw that Yao Fei's facial expression became much softer, which seemed to be an arrangement for Liu Zhengming. Very satisfied. As a space maintainer, Xiao Fei knows that this hotel is Liu Zhengming's property, and many of his lovers have been here. Liu Zhengming has his own ideas on how to make women happy physically and mentally. The mother and the son were led to Liu Zhengming. Liu Zhengming looked only in his early 30s. He was not old, and his figure showed no obvious signs of blessing. The facial lines were cold and the aura was majestic, even in the warm light of the desktop. He didn't appear much amiable, he smiled softly, with crow's feet in the corners of his eyes, and a bit of condescending kindness in his breath, which would make anyone who talks to him feel flattered. Xiao Fei thinks that this may be the characteristic of the Liu family. Uncle Liu is good. Xiao Fei yelled cautiously, but his attention was captured by the teenager who was sitting aside listening to the song with headphones on. He had a jet black hair top and a faintly visible stiff silhouette, and his fine hair was blowing in the breeze. Dangling, scratching to the most itchy place in people's hearts, but this was not what he cared about, and his heart suddenly sank to the bottom, and finally he was 100% sure that the person who was looking at him was Liu Chen just now. Liu Zhengming stood up. He liked the boy who was about to come to the Liu family very much. Everyone liked this harmless creature, quiet and well-behaved, completely different from his wolf-like son. He smiled. I teased, Xiao Fei is a boy, so you can't be so scared of life. Xiao Fei is still called Xiao Fei. According to the system, the characters he enters are all passers-by. Even if it is changed to his own name, it will not affect the balance of space. This benefit can be regarded as his novice gift package. Xiao Fei seemed to have never seen such a amiable elder. His eyes were shining at each other. In order to maintain his personality, Xiao Fei would regard himself as the original owner most of the time. There was pain in the hand, it was Yao Fei who pinched his flesh. She whispered, "Speak, you are dumb." Liu Zhengming watched this small gesture, but motioned to Yao Fei, "It's okay, don't scare your children." Yao Fei immediately smiled and rounded up the field. Had it not been for Liu Zhengming to call this kid by name, she would have forgotten her son. How could she have brought out the oil bottle deliberately? This is a price reduction. Fortunately, Liu Zhengming seems to just like Xiao Fei. Stupid. Liu Zhengming pointed to the boy beside him. This is my son, Liu Chen. Liu Chen didn't seem to hear their conversation. He was immersed in his own world. His slender fingers tapped the tabletop rhythmically, as if dancing to music. His skin was so white that people's eyes were dazzling, like smiting butterfly wings. The age is so enchanting, and a few years older is probably the sentence in the novel, humanoid hormone. Liu Zhengming patted Liu Chen on the back of his head and said with a smile, "Smelly boy, say hello." From that intimate tone, I could feel that he seemed to love his son very much. Liu Chen first took off the Bluetooth headset hanging on his ears and stood up. The young man was tall, with perfect facial features, and he looked straight over with a pair of dark, bottomless eyes. When he looked at Xiao Fei, his smile seemed to be there was something extra, which made Xiao Fei's heart palpitations. He immediately thought of the scene he had just met and understood the meaning of the boy's smile. It seemed that Yao Fei's task of asking him to please Liu Chen was unlikely to be completed. When Liu Chen laughed, he was a little casual, and he was full of youthful age. "I am Liu Chen." They are still students, nodding their heads as a greeting. Xiao Fei hesitated for a while on the address, and finally chose a listener who could fulfill Yao Fei's request, "Brother Chen." In the original text, he called his brother, who seemed too intimate. He didn't want to be taught by Liu Chen to be a man. Liu Chen didn't expect him to call himself that. Seeing Yao Fei's expression of hatred for iron and steel, and seeing that Xiao Fei still had a dull face, he thought this pair of mother and son was very interesting. The mother tried to climb up, but the son was completely absent. The tone is also a little more real. Smile, this is an interesting title. Are you my big brother in society? The joke in Liu Chen's words immediately alleviated the original embarrassment, and the parents of the two parties also felt that the meeting was quite pleasant and very satisfied with the result. Xiao Fei. After running out of a main course, Liu Zhengming explained to Xiao Fei about his academic arrangements. "I didn't want you to transfer to another school. You may not be used to transferring after the third year of high school, but your mother wants you to receive a better education. Everyone is a parent, and I can understand her thoughts. Fortunately, Xiao Chen is also there. I think your two children can also take care of her. If you don't understand, just ask him." He was admitted by his own ability. Class. From the tone of voice, I can feel that Liu Zhengming, like all fathers in the world, is very proud of his brilliant son. Hearing this, Xiao Fei knew that his mother wished that he would stick to the Liu family father and son, and it would be best to become the real Liu family young master. Don't worry, Liu Chen doesn't bother to pay attention to passers-by. Although the two children didn't speak much, there were still two older people at the dinner table. One tried desperately to praise his son, and the other to please him, praising Liu Chen so much that there was nothing in the sky. However, Liu Chen himself obviously couldn't listen, stood up, and didn't give Liu Zhengming face to him who was preparing for this meeting. Sure enough, Liu Zhengming immediately let go. Even his son shouldn't give him face in front of outsiders. Unchangingly asked, "Xiao Chen, didn't you go out just now? What is it this time?" Liu Zhengming barely said, "As a father, why can't you praise his son? Go to the bathroom." After walking a few steps, Liu Chen seemed to have thought of something and smiled innocently. "Oh, yes, speaking of going out just now, I saw Aunt Fei and." His eyes slid around Yao Fei and Xiao Fei. At this moment, even Yao Fei, who wanted to sit and watch the tiger fight, had a fast heartbeat, and guilty of not daring to look at Liu Chen. Xiao Fei thought that the male lead really knew how to speak, and half of the talk was left half, and his appetite was stunned. But even if it is said here, it will only intensify the conflict. Yao Fei's pillow style cannot be underestimated. If Liu Chen is not stupid, he would not choose to tear his face with his father's lover in this situation. Sure enough, Liu Chen's words changed, and then, he's Fei, Aunt Fei is indeed more beautiful than I thought. You kid, your Aunt Fei is your aunt, don't be big or small. Liu Zhengming turned angrily and let go of his son. He didn't get too angry, but felt that his son admired his female partner and proved that he had a good vision. Yao Fei squeezed the knife and fork tightly. She looked down on the Liu family young master too much. He was warning her that he could get her out of the Liu family at any time. If she can be bluffed by a teenager who is less than 20 years old, then she has been in vain in recent years. Compared with the threat of a kid, it is most important to grasp Liu Zhenming's heart. She took off her high heels decisively, and a pair of jade legs in transparent silk stockings were immediately wrapped around Liu Zhengming under the table, and she flicked along her thighs. Liu Zhenming's breathing became heavy, and she looked at her warningly and lowered her voice. Don't make trouble. Yao Fei didn't care if it wasn't threatening at all. Perhaps the environment was more exciting. Liu Zhengming allowed her to quarrel with herself. He still slashed steaks on the table without hurriedly. By the way, he observed Xiao Fei and found that the little guy is still eating with his head buried. Such a dull and unscheduled boy obviously fits Liu Zhenming's hopes better. And Xiao Fei, who watched it up close, ate the meal on the plate without squinting his eyes, as if he hadn't noticed the dark tide under the table. Passerby was not so good, and he had to teach the tuition from time to time. When Liu Chen came back, Liu Zhengming had been stunned long ago, and the driver waiting below sent a windbreaker jacket to cover a place below which was full of energy, and then ordered the two small ones to continue to eat. He and Yao Fei had left beforehand. As for what happened, everyone sitting there was tacitly aware, even Xiao Fei, the only person on the table who felt that the rest was unconscious, knew well. Does it look good? Liu Chen asked casually after the person left, holding his hand to look at Xiao Fei, who was immersed in eating. Xiao Fei didn't know how to eat. Hearing this question, he knew that the other party was asking him what he thought of watching an adult show. A really bad person, he could only pretend to be dumb. This restaurant is very beautiful. Really? Liu Chen's gaze was intriguing. Really stupid, or pretend to be stupid? Xiao Fei was inexplicably flustered, and only felt as if he was being stared at by a beast. Liu Zhengming and the two left in a hurry. As soon as they closed the door, they became hot in the back seat. Since meeting Yao Fei, Liu Zhengming feels that he has regained his youthful vitality again, which is why he is willing to allow Yao Fei to enter Liu. At home, Liu Zhengming has always been willing to sacrifice his blood for his lover. Liu Zhengming, the typical desire for love leads to death. The driver had long been asked to go back first, and Wu Taihu, who was waiting in the driving seat, also put the car on the road smoothly. Before the screen was lowered, Yao Fei and Wu Taihu looked through the rearview mirror and collided with each other, sparking a spark. The game of the powerful has just begun. Yao Fei is not a woman sitting and waiting to die. From Liu Chen's reminder, it can be seen that in addition to Wu Taihu who came downstairs, Liu Chen was present at the time. They were the ropes hanging around Yao Fei's neck. Her daily actions are not so clean. If these two people are unwilling to let her go and add a little bit of jealousy to her actions, there will be more obstacles to staying in the Liu family in the future. She has gone to this day and will not let them easily destroy it. Compared to Liu Chen who was just publicly intimidating her, she felt that the dull Wu Taihu was more dangerous. Now, she needs to make their attitude at least neutral. The phone vibrated for a while, and Xiao Fei, who was left behind, glanced at the screen. Take care of Master Liu, do whatever he says. It was sent by Yao Fei, and the exclamation mark at the back made Xiao Fei fully feel the urgency of his mother. Originally just reminded her son, but now at all costs, her subtext is to let the son do his best. The original owner did so, because he didn't want to go back to Xiao's father. When Yao Fei found it, it was like the last straw. He had to seize this opportunity, naturally to please him in every way. Chen's little attendant, an obedient dog. Xiao Fei didn't want to do that, and he planned to test whether he would not be judged as a collapse as long as his personality did not collapse. Xiao Fei took a look, then turned off the screen. After the conversation just now, the atmosphere between the two became weird, and Xiao Fei simply forgot the pleasure that Yao Fei had made before leaving, and continued to eat. He could feel the seeming sight of Liu Chen on the opposite side, and the other party didn't embarrass him anymore, let alone say anything, but it was this quiet that made Mr. Passerby feel the pressure. "Have you eaten?" The 3 words of the teenager made Xiao Fei, who was still thinking about the next step, regained his senses. He watched embarrassingly that the new food was also empty. He didn't really like to eat, as if he had acted too far. There was a little noise in my stomach. Putting down the knife and fork stiffly, he lowered his head and gave a hum. Liu Chen only asked people to write down the account, and then glanced at the mobile phone that Xiao Fei put in. "It's from Aunt Fei." Xiao Fei squeezed his fingers tightly, and Liu Chen hooked the corners of his mouth without saying anything. He found that Liu Chen may know or guess it, but this person has a bad nature and likes to look at the nervous people around him. Until he went downstairs and came to the car, the driver, Zhang, waited there early. Liu Chen answered the call, his brows narrowed, and he seemed to be crying. Even Xiao Fei next to him felt the other's excitement, as if he was female. But there was only one sentence from Liu Chen, "I see." Hung up the phone, got into the car, and said, "I'll have something to do later." Xiao Fei understood immediately, and quickly answered, "I can go back by myself." He didn't want to be with him in the first place, the invisible pressure never disappeared. When Liu Chen looked over, he added another sentence, "No one will know. I don't know anything, so I don't have to worry about being asked by my parents." Xiao Fei agreed too quickly and winced too much. Liu Chen was too more determined to the guess in his heart. He stepped back and took a little serious, "Do you really want to come to the Liu family? What's the meaning? Why does Liu Chen ask that? Is he trying to test him? But this time he might say no, no matter what." I blinked my eyelashes, but the light was blocked by the heavy glasses, yet. Liu Chen leaned against the window, looking at the traffic flow under the night, and then said something seemingly unrelated, "I heard that the middle school students in the city won the ranking last time." Xiao Fei bit his scalp and responded. He was the second to last and only won a participation award. This is at the dinner table just now. When Liu Zhengming praised her son, Yao Fei also mentioned the current situation of her son. She looked like a good and competent mother, but in fact it was the original owner who was too happy to see her mother. "Thought I won a prize. Let's do this, I have no objection to walking home from here to give full play to your strengths." Xiao Fei raised his head abruptly, facing Liu Chen's unsmiling eyes. The darkness was not bottomed. "The apartment that Yao Fei rented is in the suburbs. This is the city center. He needs to change 3 buses and has more than 40 stops. With this unreliable body, he will probably walk into the middle of the night, and, can he hold it?" Liu Chen's face changed like a book, and no coldness, just like this young energetic young man, like a prank. "Is it a joke, is it serious?" I closed the window and walked away. How could it be a joke? Liu Chen drew a circle casually, and then, with the grace that he possessed, seemed to be kind and gave him a choice, whether he could leave or join the circle. He was born in a typical powerful family. He was immersed in such an environment since he was a child. His words, deeds, and even every action have been given that layer of morality, which is difficult to distinguish between true and false. In fact, there is no choice at all. If you don't take his words seriously, you will lose the first key to enter the Liu family, and Yao Fei's bad habit of being merciful is still being held, and Mr. Passerby cannot bet on it. The driver Zhang, who was driving, hesitated to say something and stopped. Seeing that his young master was in a good mood, he asked what he thought. "Master, isn't it?" The child couldn't keep up with his physical strength, and his face was not very good just now, so he didn't want half his life when he walked back from here. Excessive. Lu Chen has nothing to do with him. The desire of these wild bees and butterflies is endless. For them, the Lu family is a famous flower, and they have to sting even if they can. Our Lu family talks about giving and rewarding. There is no such thing as a free dinner in the world. The driver was speechless about these fallacies. "What you said is. That kid didn't look so honest, do you really think he would do it?" Lu Chen didn't take what he said just now to his heart. "Even this can't even be a pastime in life, be smart in front of me, hey." He hasn't had so much time to specifically target someone, but how can he not beat him when he gets in front of him? Xiao Fei checked the route and walked quickly, but the churn in his belly became more and more unbearable, as if he had eaten too much. The original owner's body was always full and hungry. There was a bit of chronic gastritis, and he retched a few times. He could hold back Xiao Fei and speed up his pace. His face became paler and paler, and the battery of his mobile phone ran out at this time. The room leaked even night rain. Fortunately, he had already remembered the route. He and Lu Chen must be at odds with each other. Why are they so unlucky? A bus drove in front of him, robbing him of his attention. Lu Chen came to the agreed place. At the entrance of the mall, there was a fashionable girl standing in front of the mall. The girl wore a strapless top and hip jeans, revealing her slender waist and long legs. She could see coming from the crowd at a glance. The young man turned his anger into joy. Facing such a perfect face, no matter how great his anger was, he couldn't help restraining himself. It hasn't been a month since they dated, and there is no chance to get along, but today is her birthday. She thought that Lu Chen would not be late at least, so she couldn't help complaining in her tone. "Do you remember my birthday? No time, go shopping. Wandering? Are you too perfunctory? Am I still not your girlfriend? I didn't even attend the party for you today." Dongling is not short of suitors, but for this man, she has spent 4 months pursuing her. It took countless hours of energy and time to get the approval. She thought at least he cared a little bit about herself. Well, so what? As he said, Lu Chen picked up the small phone call and successfully prevented Dongling from questioning. Thinking that everyone said in private that they would definitely not last a month, Dongling felt that she would try again for the sake of her own face and charm. But today Lu Chen is more cope with it than usual. After shopping for a while, he answered a few more calls, which sounded like some investment. She heard that he has gradually come into contact with family affairs under the guidance of his father. When he received the 5th call, he finally couldn't bear it. "You know how long I waited? 3 hours. Why don't you even answer WeChat? If there is something at home, I will let you not care about me. I don't have time tonight. Don't make trouble like a child." "I'm making trouble unreasonably? Have you ever cared about me? Do you understand how I just want to spend time with you?" Lu Chen got a cold face and walked towards her. When she was stiff, he said, "I said at the beginning that I can promise you, but don't expect me to respond. You can say separation anytime." "Dongling, you crossed the line." "Up." There were tears in Dongling's eyes, but her dignity allowed her to restrain her trembling. This person's heart is diamond, and no one can penetrate it. When it comes to this, how could she persist? "Let's break up." She suddenly remembered the words circulating among the girls that Lu Chen is not difficult to chase, because he doesn't care, so he won't feel it when you leave. No one can hold the wolf. He may just think that life is too boring. And they, the girls who pursued him, were a tuned product. Even so, he still makes people want to stop. He is so different from boys of the same age, so big that only a glance can make people rush. Lu Chen raised his eyebrows. and there was no anger when he was thrown again, just like when he agreed, yes. Seeing that Liu Chen really left, she didn't even have a word to keep her, she felt as if she was crumpled. Liu Chen, one day you will meet someone who makes you deep, I'll wait. Liu Chen turned around, took out the tissue he was wearing, and wiped away her tears. His good self-cultivation made him look natural in everything he did. He did not refute, good point of view, keep it up. Looking at Liu Chen without a trace of emotion, Dong Ling seemed to understand all of a sudden. The current owner of the Liu family, Liu Zhengming, is not well known. She remembers her parents saying that this is a figure who awakens the power of the world and lies on the knees of a drunk beauty. For the men of the Liu family, the latter is just an enjoyment outside of their rights. They have inexhaustible beauties, and no one is worthy of them to stop. What they really care about is the former. That's why he has such a look, because he doesn't think anyone can influence him at all. Along the way, Liu Chen took out his mobile phone and chatted with Wu Taihu, and suddenly saw a familiar figure walking in the crowd. Perhaps no one was more transparent than this one. The slightly longer bangs covered the boy's expression, and he could only vaguely see him clutching his stomach, but he still walked quickly. But before a few steps, the young man covered his mouth, as if he couldn't help it. He opened the trash can not far away, and he vomited dimly. A surprise flashed in Liu Chen's eyes very rarely. This was a performance that exceeded his expectations. After he said something, he hung up the phone first. After observing the meeting, I made sure that the other party did not find them who happened to be passing by. Can't laugh or cry, he actually took it seriously. This little idiot is really ridiculous in his bones. The author has something to say. Xiao Luzi, are you a pig? Xiao Fizi, I know your badness well. Xiao Luzi. Good temper. It's just a half-true joke. Now that he has finished his chores, he is ready to go back. Seeing that the talent remembers his jokes, he has already forgotten Xiao Fei's Liu Chen, and he has a new impression of Liu Chen. From the time point of view, Xiao Fei should be walking at the fastest speed for more than 2 hours. Passerby Mr. Jia finished vomiting, slowly raised his head, the street light above his head poured on his face like white porcelain, the fine flowing sea also opened to the two sides due to the action, not very special, but the expression was finally caught by Liu Chen saw it truly, without the slightest anger of being teased, no resentment after compromise, and no greed or desire to enter the Liu family. He was cold, neither happy nor angry. Such an unremarkable person seems to be outside of Liu Chen's cognition, and there is even no word that can define this person for the time being. Next, it should be to find a car and go back. The previous persistence was enough to interact with each other, and Liu Chen was fully aware of the inferior nature of people and looked at it clearly. Xiao Fei wiped the place on the side of his mouth, and felt a lot more comfortable after vomiting. Although the entire esophagus felt a little burning, the stomach finally didn't stir. I recalled the root I found just now, there was half of it left, and the victory was right in front of my eyes. His eyes brightened a bit, and he walked again, as if the person who was uncomfortable just now was just an illusion of others. He did see the bus before, but he didn't go up. Because of his understanding of Liu Chen in the article, and considering all aspects, he still decided to do it well. It made people unable to pick out the thorns and trouble themselves. Besides, he himself thinks that this weak body is not pleasing to his eyes, so he should exercise. Still keep walking? Liu Chen looked at the little idiot who looked down at the road without squinting and mocked, doesn't he know that there are buses and taxis in the world? It's impossible not to know that there were several cars that happened to have driven by Xiao Fei, but there was no choice. Liu Chen, who felt that Xiao Fei was a little clever at first, again estimated the mistake. Liu Chen stopped looking, then turned around and ordered, "Let's go." "Master, don't care about him." Liu Chen smiled, "Why bother, it's his business that he is willing to leave." I have always been very caring and will not undermine the persistence of others. Lao Zhang! Lao Zhang, are you nosy now? Suddenly, Zhang, a driver with decades of driving experience, disrupted the rhythm. Sometimes getting along with the young master was more frightening than the old master. Perhaps it was this keenness and hit the nail on the head. He indeed changed the route according to the youth's home. There is no way, to see if you can take a chance and take a look at Xiao Fei, but I am still a little worried. And his unobvious by the way was discovered by his own young master. He didn't seem to blame him. He explained, I just checked the live traffic. The elevated section is a red line. There may be an accident. Change to a flat road. Liu Chen laughed, took out the Bluetooth headset, put it on again, closed his eyes and said, let Wu Yang send someone to follow him. Wu Yang is the name of Special Assistant Wu, but many people just remember to call him Special Assistant Wu. Okay. Lao Zhang breathed a sigh of relief. He also knew that the young master generally doesn't care about trivial matters, as long as he doesn't touch N. Lin, the young master can talk very well most of the time. When Xiao Fei walked to the apartment rented by Yao Fei, it was already more than 2 o'clock in the morning. His legs were trembling, and each step seemed to be filled with lead. After lying on the hallway floor for a while, he took off his shoes, and his heels flowed a little. There was blood, and there were blisters on the soles of his feet. Yao Fei hadn't come back yet. He didn't know where the medicine box was when he first came, and he didn't have the energy to find it. When he touched the room on the second floor, it was like an overweight sandbag falling onto the bed. Maybe he was too tired and couldn't fall asleep. He thought about what he did today and felt that he was respectful and dedicated, and he had a good harvest. He did not act as Liu Chen's follower like the original owner, but the system did not warn or judge. He collapsed. The system has proposed illegal regulations. One is that his personal setting cannot collapse by more than 30%, and the other is that he cannot be found to be an outsider. The meaning is similar to the first. It is now certain that as long as he carefully controls his behavior, he still has a certain degree of freedom. Hearing the noise downstairs, Xiao Fei was not sleepy. He came to the window and saw a business car parked downstairs. A familiar person got out of the car. There was another man following her, not in the hotel. The Mr. Yang I saw downstairs did not resemble Liu Zhengming. He was a very elegant person. He was not as powerful as the first two. The light was too dark. He was on the second floor and couldn't see his face clearly. Judging from their intimate actions, their relationship is unusual. Yao Fei left with Liu Zhengming, so this is the show tonight? Does she think her life is not colorful enough? This was walking a tightrope, and there was a deep abyss below, and he began to wonder if the boat he was riding would capsize at any time. Yao Fei looked at her son who was limping downstairs, and said in surprise, "You haven't slept so late." Xiao Fei didn't mention what happened with Liu Chen, and said straightforwardly, "I saw it, the one who sent you back." Yao Fei was stunned, and then warned her son, "Xiao Fei, you'd better treat yourself as blind. Even if I am blind, there are always people who are not blind, and the paper package can't keep the fire. You should remember Liu Chen and Assistant Wu. I know, it's not your turn to take care of this. I know what I'm doing." Yao Fei put aside her head in embarrassment. She was so irritated that she was holding her hair. Her appearance was a little weird. What an unimportant role makes Xiao Fei also inexplicable. The mother and son, who were not familiar with each other, looked particularly embarrassed at this time. Or Yao Fei said first, "What happened to your foot, when was it hurt?" Xiao Fei said nothing, but Yao Fei disliked it, but when he saw several blisters on his son's feet, she eased a little, took the medicine box and lifted his feet up, picking out the blisters for him and then putting them on again. "Medicine, scold him to find something for himself while applying it. Xiao Fei doesn't hurt or itchy, and she is used to this mother anyway." Although she is still enchanting, at least she is still gentle now. You still don't, they won't let you go on like this. He suddenly felt that it would be a pity that such a woman who was born like a summer flower withered, and none of these gold masters was easy to fool. Perhaps the people he touched were real, and Xiao Fei didn't consciously enter the scene and said extra words. Facing his son's kind advice, the heart that had been frozen into an ice hole had a little warmth. Yao Fei was a little gentler, and was silent for a long time before Xiao Fei fell into a deep sleep. It wasn't until Xiao Fei fell asleep that he slowly said, "You are still young and don't understand. Sometimes you can't get out if you want to go out." The next day, Liu Chen received the report early in the morning. After listening to it, he chuckled. He actually walked from beginning to end. After school, Wu Liang just went downstairs from the study and said hello to the young master. The two had just met in the morning. This omnipotent robot like Wu Teu has been helping his orthodox young master at the direction of the Liu family's patron. For some important matters, at least on the surface, Liu Zhenming's love for his son is impeccable. When he was about to leave, Liu Chen said, "Tell my father, I don't object to them moving in." Wu Liang pushed his glasses, his sharp eyes were hidden. "This is really surprising, I think Miss Yao will be happy." Since the death of the original wife, no matter how messy outside, there are not many people who can actually enter the Liu family. So far there are only two lovers. The second is Yao Fei, and the one who asked Liu Chen to agree personally is still the first. Second rate. Liu Chen only wears a polite smile. He has long been accustomed to wearing such an expression. There is no need to express it deliberately. It is impossible to tell his likes and dislikes. People who know how to persevere are not annoying. Better than those who get something for nothing, don't you think? Wu Liang thought of Liu Chen's order yesterday, and suddenly understood something, and agreed, "It's true." After receiving the news that she could move into the Liu family this weekend, Yao Fei was so pleasantly surprised. When she was with Liu Zhengming before, the other party also said to look at Liu Chen's attitude again, and it seemed that she might have to delay for a while. She gave up hope. Yao Fei couldn't help but hugged her still dull son. "How did you please?" Xiao Fei was reviewing the entrance exam in his room. After thinking about it for a while, he affirmed, "I didn't do anything." Yao Fei was not surprised. It was her characterless son who could please Liu Chen to please Liu Chen. If she had other ways, she would not be a dead horse doctor. No matter now or in the future, you have to continue to please Master Liu. Xiao Fei's left ear went in and his right ear went out. He knew in his heart that it was unrealistic for passers-by to increase the appearance rate in this kind of novel. His sight returned to the textbook, and he was secretly surprised by the teaching level of this school, which was obviously much higher than that of the previous school. Of course, he didn't know that Yao Fei helped him take the self-examination exercises of the highest standard. Seeing her son nodding obediently, she prepared to pack up with satisfaction. At the weekend, the driver Lao Zhang and a few young movers came to pick them up. Yao Fei had already followed the first freight car. Zhang saw him sitting in the corner with a pile of big cars next to him. The teenager whose Bao is about to be buried, these should be Yao Fei's clothes. The teenager hasn't said anything, but just sat there quietly and walked over. "You're not a master, give me your luggage, I'll help you first. Put it away." Xiao Fei, who was holding the word Kamoji in his hand, heard the voice and looked up. "I'm just a school bag and no luggage." Lao Zhang saw that Xiao Fei was still wearing the t-shirt and jeans that he met with the Liu family a few days ago. Xiao Fei had 2 sets of clothes in total, and they would wear them alternately. He said it was a fact that he had no luggage. But now he has new troubles, because he left directly with Yao Fei. A bunch of his documents, such as ID cards, student status certificates, bank cards, etc., are all in the original home. He needs to find time to go back. Trib. Uncle call me Zia Fei. He is not the original owner, and he doesn't feel any enjoyment of a title at all. Lao Zhang is more kind, my name is Zhang. Xiao Fei happily called the other Uncle Zhang, so along the way, the two chatted one after another. When they arrived at the Lu family, they found that the front was surrounded by people. A group of servants looked sad and didn't know what to do when they stayed there. It turned out that it was Yao Fei who was mad, because the housekeeper said that the rooms of Yao Fei and Xiao Fei were still being remodeled. The guest rooms in the main building were fixed. If 2 bedrooms were to be made available, some exercise rooms and audio-visual rooms would need to be changed. Staying in the building next to the house, the housekeeper's words are reasonable. Yao Fei is not the first time to come to Lu's house. I know that the building here is called the second building, but it's the empty building with debris. I heard that it was dead before. It's extraordinary, often haunted at night, called the dead building in private, and even the servants don't live here. How can the arrogant Yao Fei bear it? She is here to enjoy the glory of the future hostess. This is a humiliation. She said, why did they agree to let them in so quickly, so they were waiting here. There was too much noise here. The butler sent someone to the main building to invite someone, but Liu Zhengming was on a business trip, but he called and sent his son who hadn't gone out on weekends. Liu Chen's arrival caused some people watching the excitement to leave spontaneously, while others gave way. He went straight to Yao Fei, who was standing in the middle of the salute pile, politely, the family can't do anything. It's my negligence to neglect Aunt Fei. Liu Chen's words made Yao Fei feel a little more comfortable, but she still remained angry. Xiao Chen, I won't live in this building, I just want to stay with Zheng Ming. Liu Chen persuaded a few more words, but Yao Fei did not change her mind. She persisted, even with a bit of coquettishness, which was not annoying, but she appeared to be more delicate and beautiful. This style made many male servants blush. Liu Chen smiled. Xiao Fei's heart squatted, it's awful. Liu Chen bent over and said in a volume that the two of them could hear, your trick is useless to me, if you really don't want to. When Yao Fei brows with joy, she thins her lips, where did it come from, where to go back? The Lu family's rules were formulated by the Lu family, and bees who broke in by mistake have no right to be faulty. As he spoke, his gaze turned slightly, looking at Xiao Fei, who was holding his head as a wood in the crowd. Xiao Fei felt a somewhat familiar suppression again, and his body became stiff again, as if a small animal with erected fur was on alert. Vaguely hearing the lowered laughter of the male protagonist, he seemed to find Xiao Fei's nervous appearance quite interesting. Xiao transparent, very sensitive to his eyes. Liu Chen's success in choosing one of the two options made Yao Fei stop talking. After seeing him here, she managed to get the person out of her. The servants around her could not help but feel a sense of fear and admiration. After all, it is the real master, it is not that people from these small places can come to occupy the magpie's nest. After Liu Chen had finished speaking, he ordered the housekeeper to continue moving, but be more considerate to the guests, and don't let people say that their Lu family has lost their hospitality. Hearing the word guest, Yao Fei smiled charmingly. The dissatisfaction seemed to be just an illusion. Liu Xiao, I think it's a bit too wasteful to live here with our wife. Like being persuaded by Liu Chen, there is no grudge. He agreed, but his name for Liu Chen changed. Liu Chen also responded with a smile, don't waste it, as long as you are satisfied, I can also explain to my father. He left without looking back, his weekend didn't want to be wasted on this one. Xiao Fei's gaze, intentionally or unintentionally, was also regarded as an illusion by Xiao Fei. Xiao Fei immediately forgot the episode and helped Yao Fei carry her piles of luggage. When she heard her calling and complaining to Liu Zhengming coquettishly, she was coaxed to laugh and asked, seemingly unconsciously. Modification situation. Xiao Fei couldn't bear to break her illusion. The main building was not modified at all. It was only made up by the butler, Uncle Yu, to coax her. In the final analysis, Liu Zhengming is just trying to be a novelty, it is impossible for her to get started, so there is no need to change the layout of the main building, and of course she is not qualified to enter the guest room. Accepting her to live in the Liu family is just a spectacle. Arrangement in such a deserted building is just right. It can coax lovers without hindering their normal life in the Liu family, and it can also create rumors for outsiders that the Liu family wants. You can do several things in one fell swoop. The first 2 floors are occupied by debris. The mother and son chose the 3rd floor room. When Uncle Yu accompanied him to his room, the butler's regular expression could not be maintained. The furniture covered by white cloth was covered with a cloth. There are thick layers of dust, spider webs entangled everywhere, and there is a sense of silence in the air. It is as cold as a haunted house. He turned to, during this time, the master wants us to prepare the young master's school party. There is not enough manpower. These rooms have not been occupied for a long time. I'll choose another one for you. Just listen to these excuses, and it is better for a temporary population to be ignorant. It doesn't matter, it's good. It's not all haunted houses. He thinks that the Liu family is already very generous with such a big room. He repeatedly refused Uncle Yu and the others to help organize, and said that he was very good at cleaning. You must know that the original home of the original owner was organized by Xiao Fei since childhood, and his housework ability was excellent. Before Uncle Yu left, he looked at Xiao Fei deeply with a look of emotion. Maybe it was because Yao Fei had been tossed and frightened before, but she didn't expect that her children would not be difficult to get along with. After the workers moved their things, Yao Fei wanted to flick her sleeves and left. She didn't want the servants of the Liu family to touch her own things. Xiao Fei resigned to help her tidy them up. The afterglow hung on the horizon, and Xiao Fei was lying on the ground, looking at the already clean room. He felt a sense of accomplishment. He was going to find Yao Fei for dinner before starting to clean his room, which had been dusty for centuries. He didn't find anyone, but he felt a vibration on the soles of his feet. It was a cell phone covered by a carpet. I don't know when it dropped. From the outside, it didn't look like the one that he usually used. He remembered that Yao Fei usually only had one mobile phone. When in doubt, a call interrupted Xiao Fei's thinking. It was a string of characters without remarks. When he was about to hang up, he picked it up with an envoy, and heard the male mid-bass, Fei, don't look for it, I got new news here, this time Liu Zhengming can't make a conversation. You still move back to where you were. The place where the Liu family seems to be loose, but the one that can be put on the table is definitely not something you can get. Don't take the risk to get it. Xiao Fei's brain was noisy, and the pictures poured into his mind, as if they were related, and they seemed to be pieced together. He lowered his voice, and squeezed a thin voice, which became lighter after the phone changed. It's like a female voice, not obtrusive. Perhaps it is rare to encounter Yao Fei's indifferent appearance, and the other party is also a little guilty. Wait, Fei, we will be together soon. The man said a few words, and hung up the phone because he was busy. Xiao Fei looked at the phone with a heavy face. He carefully recalled the story about Xiao Fei. It was really pitiful. The evaluation of Yao Fei was just that when the hostess asked, the housekeeper casually said that the other party had eaten bad results, and he had not been there for a long time. The Liu family. Self-eating, what kind of evil is it? Combining the words of the other party, Xiao Fei also knew that things might be more complicated than he thought. Xiao Fei wanted to delete this call log, but he lost a few power-on passwords, and he didn't worry about it anymore. Now, finding Yao Fei is the most important thing. He held the phone and looked at the main building. Yao Fei, wouldn't it be there? Xiao Fei didn't want to be guessed by himself, but now this possibility is constantly enlarged in his mind, and even if he doesn't imagine, he can guess how terrible the ending will be. Xiao Fei considered the advantages and disadvantages of finding and not finding, and finally decided to fight for Passerby's safe life in the future. According to the description in the memory, he knew about the layout of the main building. Taking advantage of the 5 minutes of the handover of the kitchen staff, he sneaked in from the kitchen window. Probably even the Lu family did not expect that the people living in this house need to be so sneaky. No one thought anyone would dare to break into Lu's house. Xiao Fei carefully wiped off his own footprints and saw Uncle Yu, the housekeeper with his back facing him, hiding behind the bonsai with his waist up. When the other party was commanding him, he rushed to the side of the vertical clock and quickly flashed to the small staircase. In the shadows. He was very fortunate that there was a home elevator in the main house of the Lu family, and stairs were rarely used. Tuck the shoes and socks under a closet, so that the soles of the feet maintain the most primitive perception, and step upstairs with the softest sound, even breathing during the period. Xiao Fei's luck was pretty good. He didn't meet anyone all the way to the 5th floor. Of course, if he did, he probably wouldn't be able to leave the house well. The 5th floor is mainly Lu Zhenming's bedroom and office study. If Yao Fei does come here, then she should be in the study. The window at the end of the teak-paved corridor was faintly diffused with the light of the sunset, quietly like a beast sleeping in the dark. He looked at the closed doors in the corridor, analyzing the direction of the study. While hesitating, a door opened silently, he was pulled in with both hands, and the door was closed. Before yelling out, the people behind broke his illusion. "What are you doing here?" Seeing Yao Fei's angry eyes, Xiao Fei couldn't wait to faint immediately. He took a few deep breaths and questioned, "This should be my question. I also hope that my imagination is too much. Do you know how much the Lu family can do to make a child like you go desperate? Take advantage of this now." Yao Fei did not expect that her son would actually appear here, and judging from his tone of voice, he should have discovered something. "Which is more serious between my child running around and you being arrested as an adult?" "I'm leaving, then what about you? Continue." Xiao Fei glanced around. Fortunately, Yao Fei is more cautious and careful when looking for it. There seems to be no trace of being passive, but does this indirectly prove that Yao Fei is a habitual offender? Xiao Fei felt that it was getting more and more difficult. "How can you not wet your shoes when walking along the river? I didn't joking with you. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the infrared system on the 5th floor will be activated. Only 3 people have a password. Then you will not be able to leave." Yao Fei said viciously, "If something happens to you, my eyes won't even blink." Xiao Feichen was angry with these words, "If you don't go, I won't go, I only have you as a mother." The last sentence is for the original owner. Yao Fei choked and became more anxious, "I can't explain to you. I must." At this time he didn't intend to conceal it anymore. That person said, "You don't need to look for it, he has a way." "What, you?" The two suddenly stopped talking, and the faint voice of dialogue was particularly eye-catching in the quiet environment, and it came through the door. "The soundproofing facilities here are very well done. If it is not too quiet, they can even listen to this sound. Less than." They glanced at each other, looking for a place to hide. Xiao Fei silently pointed at one of the couches. The couch was behind the bookshelf. It was supposed to be a place for Lu Zhengming to rest temporarily when he was tired. It was difficult to hide underneath. "Be found." Yao Fei spoke to her mouth, "What about you? Xiao Fei thought that you knew you were anxious at this time. What were you doing just now?" Xiao Fei just wanted to keep her now silent. "Go ahead, I will find a way." As the conversation outside the door approached, Xiao Fei's forehead was sweaty. He looked at the desk for a few seconds, gritted his teeth and pulled the wheelchair away, and went down. With a click, he heard the unlocking sound of pressing the hand. He curled up in the shadows and pulled the wheelchair back to its original position. In less than a second, the door was opened. Very familiar voice, this voice is just like that young man, unforgettable at first sight. Liu Chen's voice has just passed the change of voice, and it is particularly pleasing to the ears, and it makes the ears soft to hear. You said that the new city shopping mall project that Yang Zhen was fancy was cut off by the people of Rongsheng Industry. Xiao Fei didn't know that this Yang Zhen was the same Mr. Yang they met downstairs in the hotel that day. The man who spoke with Xiao Fei cordially looked like a benevolent middle-aged man. Yes, I'm afraid Mr. Yang's previous emotional investment has been ruined. I heard that a lot of capital has been invested in order to win several investors. Now inside the Yang family, shareholders are beginning to be dissatisfied with his mistakes. Wu Yang is regarded as Liu Chen in business. In a way, his actual assistant is also a mentor. This dissatisfaction, there is your handwriting in it, too. Liu Chen settled. Wu Yang neither denies nor admits, the expression still looks like a machine under the lens. Master looks at me too high, I don't have that great ability. I'm not a father, you don't have to be so careful when you speak. Is there any sign of being intercepted this time? It may be that the news has leaked. The news is not so easy to leak, Yang Zheng doesn't even trust his son. This is also what makes Wu Yang strange. However, the young wolf master obviously won't let go of such a good opportunity. You continue to let people stare at me, Liu Chen, don't want this piece of cake for nothing, just take a bite. Wu Yang's cold face showed a clear look, and his haughty head dropped slightly. Yes. Liu Chen said his name, not the Liu family. Obviously in his heart, the Liu family could not represent him. Okay? Liu Chen condensed his eyes, and saw a white cloth between the desk and the carpet. Did a mouse enter? Xiao Fei really had no place to hide. The safest place in this study was given to Yao Fei. He didn't have time to think about it in a hurry. He could only believe that the most dangerous place is the safest place, when Liu Zhengming was not at home. Next, he could have survived until the chat between the two was over, but he neglected his clothes. He had 2 sets of summer clothes. The t-shirt has been worn for many years. It has been washed big, long, and loose. His crouching movement directly dragged this t-shirt to the ground, revealing that one horn. The author has something to say. Xiao Luzi, come, squeak Xiao Fizi, Ji. Liu Chen walked to the desk without squinting, with a natural attitude, as if he hadn't noticed. Xiao Fei, who looked like a cicada chrysalis, heard the sound of his feet stepping on the soft cashmere blanket. His heartbeat almost bounced to his throat, the footsteps stopped, and his nerves were still unable to relax. There was only a small gap between the two. Board. Liu Chen stepped on that corner of his clothes with one foot, so that it had no chance of exposure. Afterwards, Xiao Fei realized that there was some restraint around him. He turned his head and finally found that he was negligent. The corner of his clothes leaked out of the gap. Was he discovered? Reason tells him that the possibility of not discovering is very small, but maybe it is a coincidence? He didn't dare to move. It seemed that he really didn't notice from the top. Liu Chen took a copy from a pile of documents on the table and handed it to Wu Yang behind him. Dad passed this plan, you give it to Amy. Let the people in the project team make another plan. If you want it on Monday, she will follow up at any time. Amy is one of Liu Chen's 5 secretaries. It's also seen that Liu Chen has just been in contact with company affairs for a few years. Liu Zhengming can be said to be a comprehensive supporter. The secretary team alone sent 5 people with their own specialties to help Liu Chen grow. He believes that practice is far more important than knowledge on campus, and the Liu family has indeed always been a pragmatist. Mr. Passerby felt the foot on his clothes move. He breathed carefully and heard the sound of the door being closed again. He should have gone out. Didn't find him? He didn't act immediately, but continued to listen to the movement, and the room seemed to have entered a silent mode again. Xiao Fei looked at a ray of orange light leaking out of the window, and the red-stained clouds seemed to be burning. It was almost 6 o'clock, and he couldn't drag it any longer. Gently pushing the chair, he got out of the gap. Before he could stand still, he turned and hit a pair of smiling eyes head-on, a magnified handsome face. The two eyes met, and Xiao Fei seemed to be frozen in place. Living. The teenager only had a little smile on his lips, and he couldn't see the emotions. Don't you explain, why are you here? He's always there. Xiao Fei can manage the evil taste that the teenager deliberately draws him out. He feels like a jellyfish, and the feeling of being looked at by the person in front of him is transparent. Of course, he must find a reasonable excuse at this time, but Xiao Fei knows what is in front of him. How difficult it is for people to be confused. The incoherent expression really looks like a kid caught in a bag, and a little tear came into his eyes. I didn't mean it. Uncle, you said that my mother and my room were being remodeled. I was curious. No, I resisted sneaking in, but I didn't know which floor it was, so I ran around and hid after hearing your voices. Xiao Fei was already a little fat, with a mushy cheek, and he looked younger than his actual age, and he was crying when he spoke. He was flustered and at a loss. Liu Chen had seen all kinds of eyes, but the pair in front of him was very clean. Xiao Fei is quite confident in the life of the original owner. He has been a good student for more than 10 years, and he is also submissive to the father who beats and scolds at home. Liu Chen must be clear about this information, and the probability of suspicion has dropped by countless percentage points. Liu Chen did think so. He didn't think that Xiao Fei could understand the documents in this room, but it didn't mean that Xiao Fei could break into here casually. Seeing that Liu Chen was cold and silent, this person had already assumed the aura of a superior. When he didn't speak like this, the more he made people go up and down. Xiao Fei's current posture was very twisted, and his body remained halfway up. State, with one elbow resting on the desk and the other resting on the chair. When do you want to maintain this position? Come over. Just as Xiao Fei thought at the beginning, the arrest of a child and the arrest of an adult are two concepts, and Liu Chen is still fighting for a non-threatening person. But Liu Chen didn't let him go, he was just looking at Xiao Fei. Xiao Fei was a little flustered by that look. I won't dare anymore. Xiao Fei seemed to be anxious, mustered his courage, and grabbed Liu Chen by the corner of his clothes. His words disrupted, successfully interrupting Liu Chen's deep thoughts and covering up other possibilities. Liu Chen glanced, and said quietly, "Let go." Xiao Fei seemed to wake up, only to realize that he was so courageous just now. Liu Chen frowned, is he so scary? Seeing the other person's pitiful appearance, he couldn't help but think of the cold face under the street lamp that day, and then compared to the person in front of him, it seemed that this was what Xiao Fei should have. What a violation! The unspeakable feeling felt like grass grows in his heart. When he was blown lightly, he scratched it with great intensity. Even if Liu Chen forgot it in a flash, it still left traces. I remember you were an adult, and you grew up as a crying bag. Liu Chen took off Xiao Fei's glasses and finally saw the misty eyes, like black pearls washed in water. I didn't. Xiao Fei was taken aback, but Liu Chen didn't do anything, and returned the glasses to him. You are like this, as if I'm bullying you. Liu Chen sneered. I shouldn't rush in. He still knows right from wrong. No, next time. Liu Chen thought about it and said slowly, with a warning. Definitely not. Xiao Fei immediately assured. Liu Chen felt that the person in front of him was stunned, and he hooked his mouth. Remember, I owe me favor. Even the surrounding atmosphere became cloudy and fine in an instant. He has the ability to influence the emotions of others in this way. Well, if you have instructions in the future, I will definitely go through the fire and water. This shows that he should not be held accountable. Xiao Fei was greatly relieved. He didn't even dare to look in Yao Fei's direction. This kind of dialogue seems to be between the same age. Liu Chen was in a daze. He hadn't talked to his peers like this for a long time, and it was because the environment he was in was not qualified to make him naive. Liu Chen noticed Xiao Fei's bare feet, and Xiao Fei noticed the other's gaze. This was really embarrassing, and he wished to hide them and shrank. In fact, these feet are not ugly. They have white and slender lines. The delicate skin does not seem to have pores. The round nails cover the pale pink fingers, and the pale blue meridians are obvious under the white to almost transparent skin. Under his gaze, they overlapped and flinched. Very beautiful. Although this little idiot does not look like his parents, his skin has inherited Yao Fi Fei, it seems that you are really prepared for a thief. It is lighter without shoes and socks. It is a simple reason. Xiao Fei didn't know that his nickname was getting more and more, and his face flushed. He knew that the other party was running against him. Liu Chen walked to the cabinet to the side and gave him a pair of slippers, spare. Xiao Fei thanked him in a low voice. The top of his head was photographed. The soft hair felt like Xiao Fei's. The other party said casually, "I am the same year as you. What honorifics do you use? Come with me after you wear it." Although he didn't know what the main man was doing, Xiao Fei followed obediently. At the moment of closing the door, if he looked in the next direction, hope she could seize the opportunity to go out quickly. Xiao Fei silently looked at the male protagonist's back, with a wide back, but his slender figure was not weak at all. When he feels that this person is not malicious, it is not difficult to get along with. Although there are a lot of shortcomings of the male protagonist, which happens to be the type that Xiao Fei doesn't want to provoke, but the male protagonist still has a good measure of being in the world, otherwise the female protagonist will not empathize. But Xiao Fei had forgotten that this was what Liu Chen took for granted. Many people were bewildered by his gentleness, leaving those who were wary of him unguarded. The two came to a small storage room next to the study room, surrounded by various awards, trophies, and souvenirs, covering basic categories such as mathematics, physics, and chemistry. The others are side gates such as horse racing and shooting, as well as awards from major music festivals. I don't know how many large and small, there are several countries' scripts, which are organized according to age groups all over the world. He can understand both Chinese and English, and he wrote Liu Chen's name, and he can't help but secretly marvel. The decathlon mentioned in the article is considered modest. Xiao Fei deeply felt that the passerby and the male protagonist are inseparable. Divide, everyone is composed of carbohydrates, but why the gap is so big? It is no wonder that good heroes such as heroines occasionally have low self-esteem. Xiao Fei thought that this was still the 5th floor, not the 4th floor where Liu Chen lived. That is to say, the collector of these awards should be Liu Zhengming. Liu Chen himself might not need it. Shouldn't this be the age to show off? Maybe the male protagonist has long been out of low-level tastes. Liu Chen noticed Xiao Fei's gaze, and there was a hint of helplessness on that delicate and handsome face. A clear voice, "When I was young, I loved to take these things and liked the feeling of being stronger than everyone else. Later, the old man at home. Don't let it be thrown, it's all piled here." Xiao Fei. "Oh, I see, the taste of crushing others has changed from bright to dark." Liu Chen took out a floppy disk and handed it to Xiao Fei. The exam questions compiled by the Dijiang teacher in the past few years contain a lot of ideas for solving the problems. You can look at it. Dijiang is the middle school where Liu Chen studied. Because the teacher asked Liu Chen to compile this disk together, he kept a copy here. Xiao Fei didn't expect that he would give this to himself. He was still looking at the question given by Yao Fi Fei recently. Even with the knowledge of the original owner, he often encountered problems. He knew that Dijiang's question bank was very famous all over the country, and this disk was very precious. "Go for dinner, today is your first day here, I let Uncle Yu prepare." "Thank you, Brother Chen." Xiao Fei agreed, but he still felt a little uneasy in his heart. The male protagonist had a reason for not blaming him, but he was still a little hairy when he was so good by the way. But then I think again, the male lead in the article is usually a very educated person, and there is nothing to do with the passerby. The male lead should not make a fuss about giving something casually. Besides, the speed of the male protagonist's face change is unmatched. What's the use if he just thinks about it? The passerby only needs to watch. Just think of it and give it to you. If you really thank me, it's better to accompany me to a place in a few days. Liu Chen invited. Xiao Fei didn't ask anything, nor did he have the confidence to refuse. Liu Chen drove him into the elevator, but he said he wanted to change his clothes, then turned around and returned to the study room. There was no one inside. When I came to the cabinet where Xiao Fei had been holding slippers, he took off a beautifully carved cabinet door handle expressionlessly, replaced it with another that looked exactly the same, and took out the miniature monitor inside. The author has something to say. Xiaofizi, the male protagonist has been out of low-level tastes. Xiao Luzi, yes, I now have a new goal. Xiaofizi. It's cold. There is no important information in the Liu family study, otherwise, with Liu Zhenming's disposition, he wouldn't let his son and assistant go in and out at will. But the study is still an important site, and the talks often involve corporate secrets. If there is surveillance, video data will be saved. This represents the possibility of exposure. Liu Zhenming will not allow such accidents to happen. Compared to being patronized here, may be right. For the owner of the family, he is more taboo to be aware of his own movements, so there will be no monitors in the study. Liu Chen had this one specially made by his research company. Liu Zhenming gave a small network company to his son. He tossed at will, even if he lost it, he was considered Liu family, but he did not know that he had cultivated one that has not yet been released. Of beasts. Even Wu Yang didn't know that a monitor was pressed here. Liu Chen did not expect to have unexpected gains today. After taking it out, he put it on the supporting reader. A segment of pictures appeared on the screen. When I saw Yao Fei's face, a surprise flashed across his eyes. His old man was about to capsize in the gutter. He has had many girlfriends, but Yao Fei is an exception. Yao Fei was very cautious. First, she checked whether there were any monitors around her with a detector, and then started looking for it after confirming that there were none. Obviously, she found nothing. Judging from her technique, she is a veteran. Liu Chen remembered her former lover, Yang Zhen, the man who was now facing a crisis because of a mistake in decision-making. Pointing his finger on the desktop, Liu Chen looked unpredictable. He directly pressed the fast-forward button, and new faces appeared in the screen. Recalling the interaction with Xiao Fei just now, the scenes were very clear, and Liu Chen's smile did not reach the bottom of his eyes. The acting is good. The mother and son quarreled. It is not difficult to see anxiety and shock from Xiao Fei's face. He realized how serious his mother was doing. Unfortunately, Liu Chen could not hear their conversation. This micromonitor is still in the development stage. There are many shortcomings, such as because of body size restrictions, it cannot receive sound. But even so, the information that should be obtained can be understood by Liu Chen 7 or 8. Press the pause button, the screen stops, and the index finger gently drew a circle on Xiao Fei's face, muttering in his mouth, "You surprise me." Passerby Mr. Jia didn't know that he was an accident in Liu Chen's youth. Liu Chen posted a video and a text message to Wu Yang, "Check her, the more detailed the better." Xiao Fei came downstairs and surprised the housekeeper Yu Shu, bluntly saying whether he was old and confused, and didn't notice when Xiao Fei came in. Although they wanted to meet Xiao Fei's mother and son, the other two parties, Liu Zhenming, were on a business trip, but Yao Fei didn't say where to go. Only Liu Chen and Xiao Fei were left on the table. Xiao Fei saw that Liu Chen changed into a casual outfit, looking taller and more charming, even if he had a look in his eyes. However, what Xiao Fei paid attention to was Liu Chen's appearance. Although he couldn't see any emotions, he really didn't see Yao Fei. At Liu Chen's sign, he changed the dining place from the hall to the small hall, and the dining table changed from a long table to a small round table, with a wealth of dishes. The two didn't speak much. Xiao Fei didn't know what to say to the male lead. The difference was too big and there was no common topic. This was the second time he had dinner with the male lead. He took a few glances and found that the male lead's dining etiquette was very good and pleasing to the eyes. Before he could take his gaze back, the other person looked over. Passerby was choked, covering his mouth and coughing. He felt a shadow cast down, and a pair of wide palms lightly patted his back, almost scaring Passerby for half his life, and said in a hurry, "No, it's okay." His body was stiff, and his whole body was clamoring for being unaccustomed to approaching Liu Chen. Liu Chen seemed to be completely unaffected. Leaving him, like an ordinary brother, "Eat well, no one will rob you." Discovering that Xiao Fei's earlobe was dyed red, she was shining brightly, and her undepressed mood was relieved. The butler withdrew the last dish. Xiao Fei, who felt that he could finally be liberated, looked up and saw a new dessert, caramel pudding. He looked at it suspiciously. "Liu Chen was so busy, I chose it for you, do you like it?" "I like it." Under the eaves, he couldn't have any other answers. It seemed that he suddenly understood why the original owner was willing to be a follower, and the hero did have this capital. Xiao Fei took a sip, the scent of the pudding bloomed in the taste buds, and the condensate melted into the throat, conveying the deliciousness to the stomach. It was really a kind of enjoyment. Under the comfort of the food, the whole body could not help but relax. When saying goodbye to Liu Chen, Xiao Fei couldn't help asking, "I thought you..." "Hey!" With a low voice, he looked down at the young man who was a head shorter than himself. "You hate me?" Such Harmony was a little flustered, and he asked directly, like a joke. Liu Chen seemed to be looking at a rare animal. These days, some people asked directly about their likes and dislikes. Someone who was used to cornering encountered a straight ball, and Liu Chen was also shocked. Thinking of the scenes in the surveillance again, his eyes were more interesting, and he smiled lightly, "If it's about Aunt Fei, then there will be others without you. And, what's wrong with me taking care of you?" "Xiao Fei, this person's eyes can really discharge electricity." Mr. Passerby, walking on the road, kept rejoicing with one thing, "Fortunately, I am a man." The charm of the male protagonist is real day by day, and the killing of men and women will not take away a cloud, but if the same repels, he is at most considered to be struck by lightning. Waking up by a night breeze, the strange place just appeared again. He thought of something wrong. Half of the table was his favorite dishes, and the last dessert. Would most people order such sweet desserts for boys? Although there is no memory, the preference for food is human instinct. He should be regarded as one of the few who like to eat, but the male lead doesn't know. Xiao Fei remembered that the original owner also liked the caramel pudding. Caramel pudding? His heart seemed to have been splashed with ice water. He had forgotten this. Liu Chen was telling himself that he had all the information about their mother and child, even as subtle as his personal preferences, so it's best not to do anything unusual to provoke him. It shouldn't be enough, but from this detail, we can also see how terrible Liu Chen is. He can easily grasp the hobbies of the people around him. Normal people would think, besides these, what else has been investigated? Human beings are most afraid of the unknown. It is precisely to grasp the fear in human nature that Liu Chen calmly let passerby Mr. A taste his method again. All the good feelings that have just risen are almost lost. Maybe it's just that he thinks too much, but the other person's harmless smile now only brings more fear to Xiao Fei. Back to the empty building, Xiao Fei did not find Yao Fei. Her room was also empty. He called but turned off the reminder. Only when I opened WeChat, there was a voice message. She said that she would go out for a few days, so he didn't have to look for it. Today's matter is the secret between them. Such a secret is a hot potato. Xiao Fei can't stop the headache thinking of the housekeeper's self-sacrifice. He searches for Yao Fei's former boyfriends on his mobile phone, but he has just returned to Yao Fei not long before and doesn't know where she is. How many ex-boyfriends are there? Thinking of the Yang Zhen mentioned in Liu Chen's chat with Wu Tao, Xiao Fei had a clever idea and immediately entered it. A series of reputations and introductions in the encyclopedia did not appear to be recent. It is true that these economic shocks will be publicized. He found the company name from the entry, then clicked on the official website, and finally found a photo of Yang Zhen, which was actually the middle-aged man I met downstairs at Huamo Hotel that day. Xiao Fei was a little dizzy. If according to what Liu Chen and the others said, Yang's news leaked, and the root cause was not found, and it was not determined whether the news was leaked, but as long as it is combined with what Yao Fei did today, it is not difficult to guess that she might be in private things to do. If he was from the Liu family and found out her glorious deeds, it would be impossible to let her go. She must be found and the matter resolved in advance. After playing for a few more times or shutting down, Xiao Fei fell decadently on the only clean wooden chair in the room. This article is broken. It can only be seen that the Liu family did not anger Xiao Fei afterwards, but from the point of view of the plot, Xiao Fei helped the male second, and the ending will definitely not be very good. Look at the male protagonist's appearance today. Didn't find it, this is probably the only good news. With a heart full of thoughts, Xiao Fei went to the tap water room at the end of the corridor to fetch water and began to clean the house. Since Yao Fei's matter can't be resolved in a moment, he can only better than the present now. Here Liu Chen just arrived in his study and received a call from Xiao Luo Yufei. The other end was very lively. Since breaking up with Dong Niang, how can I cultivate my body and keep in good health? Last time you had to celebrate Dong Niang's birthday and didn't come. Will you come this time? Liu Chen, do you still inquire about this kind of thing? It's spread all over your breakup, I still need to inquire? How many women are ready to swallow you now? Luo Yufei gloated. While chatting, Liu Chen walked to the balcony, his eyes condensed, and saw the only bright spot in the building next to him, a little idiot who was pouting his and wiping the floor. The main building of the Liu family is facing the gate, next to it are two side buildings, one is the servants' building, and the other is where Xiao Fei lives. Xiao Fei chose the farthest one on the third floor, while Liu Chen's study on the fourth floor happened to be on a confluence level, the closest, and it was almost completely unobstructed when viewed from the fourth floor. Xiao Fei felt a somewhat oppressive gaze, and when he looked left and right, he looked at the dark outside again. Has he been turned into a fantasy by the male protagonist? There is only one person in this building, so what can he see? Wait, this building looks haunted. The author has something to say, Xiaofizi, fortunately, I am a man Xiao Luzi, haha. Xiao Fei looked around sneakily, not seeing anything, whispering something in his mouth, and then proceeded to clean the room that had accumulated an unknown amount of dust and cobwebs. Liu Chen looked at with interest, and he said several times on the other end of the phone, I said what's wrong with you, can I get distracted by talking on the phone? I think back then, this pervert could do three things with one heart, and make people of the same age hate the existence of it. I saw something interesting. That ordinary face, with several faces in just a few days, is now scared. He was afraid of this? What's interesting? Don't tell me that you are a person. You know what Dong Niang said in the group, saying that you are detached and ordinary people can't get into your eyes. I can hear that she still has you in her heart. You really don't think about it anymore. Thinking of compounding. Shit. Liu Chen didn't pay attention to what the other end was talking about, sneered at the little idiot who was on the opposite side still spinning around in circles. Xiao Fei stuck his head out and looked around, but by this time Liu Chen had already hidden behind the curtain. Of course Xiao Fei had found nothing. Luo Yufei thought that Liu Chen was dismissive, and still said to himself, you are really full and you don't know if you are hungry. Are there any human beings in this world that can attract your attention? Liu Chen looked at the person who turned his head and wiped the floor again. With his bulging butt, he was working hard, like a busy little hamster. It was a creature completely opposite to himself, just like him. He broke into this world by mistake and said, "Do you know what it is like a drop of water enters a pan? Exploded. No, it's boiling." He locked his gaze on the little transparent body who hadn't noticed it, and then hung up the phone in response to "A will pass." In fact, Xiao Fei was just thinking, I and you have no grievances in the past and now have no enmity, you great gods, don't find me, otherwise I will burn you paper money. I just came to live temporarily, and it won't be long. Great God Lu or his father will let our mothers and daughters leave, the so-called wrongdoer, the first passerby is innocent, he just passed by. Mr. Passerby felt that talking was helpful to drive away evil spirits, and he was less afraid of talking. And because there were no plot characters in the room, he let himself go in the empty house and released a part of his nature. He didn't feel afraid of ghosts at all. Isn't it possible that people are not allowed to have something to be afraid of? Well, he was just stunned. The article said that this building was built by the ancestors of the Liu family a long time ago. Later, during the Republic of China, there was a turmoil, which caused people to go crazy, and the Liu family loves to be poor and pays attention to poverty. They think that the place left by the older generation cannot be unreasonable. It was demolished, so this building was rebuilt, and it is still there. The furniture and decoration inside are very classic. Liu Chen looked at it for a while, and realized that Passerby seemed to have slowed down and started to climb up and down to wipe the furniture. His expression was serious and he wiped the furniture carefully. He found another advantage of the other party. Xiao Fei would do anything boring. Take it very seriously, as if life is so interesting. I took out my mobile phone and used the small software I made a few days ago. There is only one small function, which can block the caller ID and modify the display as required. They did not exchange the numbers, but the numbers on the information are memorized at a glance, directly dialed over. Xiao Fei had already used his mind to dispel the panic. When he saw an incoming call without any number, he was shocked. No, these ghosts of the Republic of China are so advanced, know how to play mobile phones? The ringtone was particularly permeating in the quiet night. Xiao Fei chanted a few words to Amitabha, and when he saw it hung up, he called again. He picked it up tremblingly, and gave no sound. Xiao Fei saw that this would not work, the fear in his heart was spreading, and he knew his position under the fence of the Liu family, because he couldn't do such unclear things to ask for help. He started to chant some words in his mouth, and when he said Lexus is emptiness, emptiness is form, the side is hung up. Xiao Fei didn't expect the Buddhist scriptures to be really useful. He just read the Heart Sutra, which was translated by Master Xuanzang in the Tang dynasty. It was given to him by the system when he had no memory and was emptied. He recites it more often. Out. On the other hand, the person who hung up the phone squatted on the ground impolitely, unable to see his expression. When he looked closely, his shoulders were still shaking, and he smiled dully. Liu Chen, who had not been so happy for more than 10 years, reorganized it. With an expression, he reluctantly pressed the smile, "You won, little idiot." Actually knowing how to recite Buddhist scriptures, this reaction is too original. After reading the Buddhist scriptures, the strange sight disappeared. Xiao Fei breathed a sigh of relief, silently reciting the Buddha's light, but does this mean that this house is really weird? But now he has no other place to live, so he can earn money as soon as possible, and see if he can move to a safe place where he can follow the host and hostess nearby. Xiao Fei decided that today, he must turn on the lights to sleep. When Liu Chen arrived at a famous club in Kunming, when the manager saw the visitor, although he was dressed casually, he still had a luxurious taste. This man did not need to wear any luxuries. He himself was the most extravagant luxury without any foil. Today, many of the varieties planted in our yard have bloomed. I said what a good day is, but you are not looking forward to Liu Xiao. The manager greeted Liu Chen and showed him the way. After passing several venues with different styles, he came to the racecourse. Hearing the cheers inside, Liu Chen raised his eyebrows. It's very lively tonight. Isn't this a few young masters having fun? The manager responded. On the second floor of the viewing platform, Xiao Luo Yufei pointed his eyes, and immediately walked over and grabbed his shoulders. I said why you came so late, and thought you were not coming again. Don't tell me you are really preparing for the midterm exam? Liu Chen's open hand on his shoulder also showed a smile. Yes, you can see it all. Come on, do you still need to see this? Luo Yufei rolled his eyes and observed for a while. You seem to be in a good mood today, it's really rare. You must know that this guy was good at hiding his emotions when he was young. I caught a little mouse and let it go again. Watch him spin around and find a way out. Liu Chen had a slight smile in his eyes. You still have such a bad taste, hamsters or chinchillas. Luo Yufei thought it was the kind of hamsters that circulate in the cage, and then approached slyly. Are you really separated from the Empress? What did she give you to make you so endless? Raised his hand to say hello to the young masters who had already seen him. A few chats, that is, people who have not reached that level cannot get the admission ticket. Although they will not show you the face, they can feel it slowly and retreat. Gradually everyone has a tacit understanding. Where Liu Chen is there, he knows how to advance and retreat. What she said is also my goddess, although she is a little disillusioned now, look at her circle of friends and say that she has finally seen what a ruthless man is in this life. Retribution, that ruthless, eloquent hundreds of words, how do I tell you how to divide it? I was late and I was dumped. Liu Chen said casually. Why don't you say that you were dumped? Our brothers for so many years, you can really die. Everyone wants to go down for a race, while Liu Chen is sitting in place with Luo Yufei. The kid Yang Xin is going to transfer to Dijiang recently. Luo Yufei said when he was almost gone. What is he doing? After receiving the cocktail from the waiter, Liu Chen shook it, but didn't drink it. You are the first one of us to contact the company. You should have heard the news a long time ago. His family is not profitable this year, and it has lost several 100 million yuan here. It is only the data on the table. His father's position in the Yang family is shaken. A few uncles started to quarrel, and now it's an urgent need to stand firm, but the early investment was frustrating, and now which one will fill Yang Zhen's basket? I think Yang Zhen wants to focus on the friendship of the younger generation and put his long line fishing. Big fish, maybe there is something to help, such as a marriage. There is a popular saying in the circle that the strength is not enough to marry together. Liu Chen smiled noncommittently and saw several young masters booing around a woman who was running. It was a small sports field next to the racecourse. There was a 200-meter track. The whistles and cheers came and went, and the crowds of spectators gathered. More. Seeing the direction he was looking, Luo Yufei pointed to the other side of the viewing platform, and there were also a group of men and women. The Xia family suffered a dumb loss for the Yang family this time. It seems that the family has just arrived in Kunming, a small household. Xia Yun and Lu's family have lost the bet, and the other party asked his female companion to run the lap. If he can't run, he will follow Lou2 one night. You also know the hobbies of Lou2, people can give it to him, but guess what Xia Yun said? Let his female partner choose by herself. Luo Yufei gave a thumbs up and there was nothing that Liu Chen couldn't guess. You really understand Xia Yun, you see this is still watching a good show in the stands, this beauty is so desperate and blind. Liu Chen looked at the beauties who were not far away, so I chose a lap. Yes, 20 laps, everyone will go down to watch the excitement. What about the big beauties? It's a pity that I followed the wrong person, tisk. The girl was unaffected by her surroundings and kept a constant speed, but her legs stepped on the runway with a heavier step, her ponytail dangling in the air, sweat soaked through her clothes and her face flushed. It could be seen that she was very painful. When people thought it would stop, she gritted her teeth and endured it. This made Liu Chen think of a person, the little idiot who chose to walk in silence and walked for 40 stops. If he has seen a deeper picture, he will become dull when he sees others. Bring me a sentence to Lu Er, it's almost done. Oh Huo, when did you take such pity for you left so early. Seeing Liu Chen walking down the steps, he shouted hurriedly. Liu Chen looked back, I'm still a student, and I will go to school tomorrow. Luo Yufei. You are obviously bored. If Xiao Fize would find that this is the first time the male and female protagonists have met. From here, the male protagonist will begin to pay attention to the female protagonist, and Liu Chen is deeply impressed by the female protagonist's tenacity, but now Liu Chen has left early, even I'm not interested in sitting on the sidelines. The plot has unknowingly turned to a fork in the road, and the foundation of this building is falling apart, and perhaps it will completely collapse at some point. The author has something to say, Xiao Fizi, Emi Tofu, Emi Tofu, Emi Tofu. Xiao Luzi, shut up. When the attendant brought Liu Chen's words to him, Lu Er smashed the railing fiercely, squatted to vent his anger, kicked fiercely, and said irritably, Stop, it's all gone. Of course, several followers around him heard it, and they were suddenly surprised. That Liu Chen had just grown up. Although his family background was deep, everyone was of the same generation. Liu Chen was 7 years younger than their second son. If they want to let them go, where do they put their face? Lu Er didn't know where they were dismissive, threw the cigarette to the ground, and crushed it with one foot. You haven't committed a crime in his hands. This is a piranha, and the whole body is poisonous. Lu Er did have a relationship with Liu Chen. When he first returned to China, Liu Chen was so young, and he was expected to be bullied at most by the family. As long as juniors' contacts do not harm their interests, no one will rest assured. Ask for it by yourself, this is an unwritten rule. He happened to meet a few illegitimate children of the Liu family, so he went to the club to find faults and play Liu Chen. The little monster Liu Chen did not understand the whole process. He smiled and said goodbye to them, but then he just said goodbye. It was found that it was fully refunded 10 times. After that, I haven't seen those illegitimate children again. The extremely secretive bribery case that Lu's family had done in the past was dug up, and the relatives involved in the family were detained awaiting sanctions. At that time, he was too busy to take care of himself. The incident about him and others robbing new flowers and hurting others was exploded. Grandpa was mad and went into the hospital. When his grandpa had an accident, the ghosts and snake gods all jumped, and the family members who were still in harmony competed for the inheritance. During that time, the Lu family was badly injured. He originally thought it was Lu family's bad luck, until later he discovered that the uncle who was the least determined in the family had a close relationship with Liu Chen. The second aunt held a party but was alone with Liu Chen. Long talk, that little flower looks trembling to Liu Chen. Up to now, he was not sure how much Liu Chen had participated in these matters, but he was sure that there was Liu Chen's handwriting in it. No matter whether there was an expert behind him or not, the patience and scheming at that age had already made him creepy. It is not terrible to encounter a sinister enemy, but the terrible thing is that this enemy is more tolerant than you, and even more unscrupulous than you. Afterwards, he specifically found a chance to make amends to Liu Chen. Liu Chen still looked completely unaware, and even wondered about his apology, but this time Lu Er did not dare to underestimate him. The boy was no longer just pretending to be a pig and eat a tiger. Now, he felt that with Liu Chen in the Liu family, he would be able to prosper for at least another 100 years. Xia Yun, who was watching the play by the side, didn't seem to have thought that Lu Er, who was not afraid of the sky, would give up directly. When he passed by, Lu Er said, "It's rare for Lu Xiao to be interested. No matter what your bet is, Xiao Xiat, be gentle with your own woman, don't let people take advantage of it." Xia Yun mumbled Lu Chen's name. It hasn't been a few years since the Xia family came to Kun City. He just heard the name and knew the depth of the Lu family. Lu Chen himself was very low-key, as if he had been focusing on his studies and rarely participated in these gatherings. When the girl's lungs were almost unable to supply oxygen, she was suddenly stopped. In fact, she would fall to the ground due to lack of physical strength after a while. She heard that a person named Lu Chen helped her, and she was grateful. She was limp on the ground, and she looked up and saw Xia Yun's back figure preparing to leave. At that moment, her original persistence turned into tears. She didn't shed a tear just now when she was in such anguish, but the ruthlessness of her crush made her break down, and she wiped her tears as she listened to the sounds of ridicule around her. "Anything to cry, this is your own retribution." Compared to Xia Yun, she hated such an uncontrollable herself. Wiping her tears, she staggered to stand up and leave the crowd. Lu Chen came home very late. He was going to wash himself, and he saw the light on the other side building. After thinking about it, he knew that some stupid man was probably still dominated by haunted rumors. "When I came to the study room at the end of the corridor, I saw Mr. Jie, a passerby sleeping soundly in the bright light. Xiao Fei practiced what he said, he must turn on the lights when he sleeps, especially when he lives in this building. He lay on his side on the bed with only a thin blanket covering his body, making him look more naive when he fell asleep, with 2 pairs of white legs curled up, and under his curvy calves are those feet like suet jade. I have already taken off my glasses, my hair slid smoothly, and fell asleep peacefully." Lu Chen looked at the slightly delicate face for a while, a bit of flesh was pressed out by the pillow, his eyes flushed like an apple, his gaze gradually lowered, focusing on the pair of legs that were obviously not charming but extremely beautiful. The face formed a strong contrast. Xiao Fei suddenly frowned, feeling enveloped by something, but he was too tired all day long, and that line of sight could not wake him up. He turned over and turned his back to Lu Chen, under the thin blanket. A faint outline was revealed. Looking at the part that was obviously thin but still very tall where there should be meat, Lu Chen's eyes raised slightly. This action by Xiao Fei reminded Lu Chen that he seemed to have watched it for too long, just like raising a small pet. When he first got his hands, he loved it very much and he was interested in it. He didn't even realize that on this day alone, the number of times that he was in a good mood had risen sharply, and this was a subtle process, and the interest would slowly be superimposed, and it would deteriorate. Withdrawing his gaze, Lu Chen called Wu Liang again, his tone swiftly and calmly, "How is the investigation?" Lu Chen gave Wu Liang the video in the study, of course, for a purpose. Wu Liang was his assistant, but it was also Lu Zhenming's. If he released such a big loophole, he would have to see whether Wu Liang would have stabbed at his father. This was an assessment. Depending on Wu Liang's choice, Lu Chen could proceed to the next step. Her previous information is indeed very clean. Now I am investigating further and it will take some time. After receiving the video from Lu Chen, Wu Liang realized that Lu Chen's purpose was to remind him to stand in line and to deter him. For himself, Lu Chen has the ability to achieve details that even Lu Zhengming can't find. Of course, the current Lu Chen just threw out the olive branch and gave it a time limit. Lu Chen understands the principle of relaxation and does not press harder step by step. The more urgent he is, the more old Yushao like Wu Liang can see at a glance. It's better to take his time to get out of his bluff. And a top assistant like Wu Liang is indeed not going to turn around with a little temptation. Wu Liang didn't mention Lu Chen's deeper purpose, but just like a conscientious secretary, telling the news he had received. If it's not clean, how could she be still active now? Most of the evidence should have been erased. There is someone behind her because she is not so capable. It's not that Liu Chen looks down on Yao Fei, he simply doesn't. Never fancy it. Wu Liang also had the same idea, Yao Fei couldn't do it alone without flaws. Since I asked you to check it, of course I want to find out that others can't find it. Don't let me down. Liu Chen said lightly, glanced at the passerby who was sleeping on the opposite side, and his eyes warmed indistinctly. Turned to leave the balcony. With the phrase "don't let me down," the hand typing on the keyboard paused, and the light from the computer was refracted on the lens. A young wolf king who is about to plump his wings may already be coveting a wider land. The chairman highly valued this son, and Liu Chen never let Liu Zhengming down, but apparently, as the young wolf king grew up, the gap between the father and son was getting bigger and bigger. I understand. After hanging up the phone, Wu Liang didn't work immediately. He heard the meaning of Liu Chen's words. He didn't inform the chairman of the young masters putting on the monitor. Perhaps from that moment on, the balance in his heart had already tilted. The young wolf is about to become a wolf, and the pace of conquest is more calm. Moonlight spilled into the room, and the fierce collision between men and women was quiet in the long night. A hand painted with purple nail polish slowly lifted the thin quilt, and the soft body like a snake monster came out, standing naked on the thick carpet. She didn't even look at the sleeping person in the quilt, and her expression was no longer coquettish. Liu Zhengming didn't know what he was being caught in these years, and he could only sleep well when he was with her. This is one of the reasons why Yao Fei is so spoiled. She picked up the silk on the side and put it on when she was fully asleep, then walked downstairs with a belt casually. After being almost spotted from the study, Yao Fei decided to return to Liu Zhengming immediately. She wanted to make Liu Zhengming fascinated by herself and also collect information nearby. By the way, observe whether they doubted herself or not. She has always been an active woman, so she didn't say hello to Xiao Fei and fly directly to where Liu Zhengming is. Looking over, he noticed that the man working on the sofa in the living room was still wearing a three-piece suit during the day. He seemed to have not changed his outfit throughout the year. In such a hot weather, he didn't even unbutton a button. Not even a drop of sweat shed. He looked up at her direction and switched the computer screen instantly, but his expression remained unchanged. Only a floor lamp was turned on, and the warm yellow tones gave this man who was cold like a machine a layer of realism, and his stiff facial features were no longer so indifferent. Wu Liang had a pair of silver-rimmed glasses on his face, which looked very elegant. Yao Fei walked to the lead sofa, and even the sitting posture revealed a seductive charm, staring at him for a few minutes, but the man was unmoved. Yao Fei remembered that the previous few overt and secret gestures were blocked by Wu Liang. Now Yang Zhen's affairs have become a big deal, and Wu Liang seeing her and Yang Zhen together that day is still a time bomb. Resident said, "You work so hard, why didn't he give you a raise?" This him, they all clearly referred to their common boss, Liu Zhengming. Without leaving the computer, he pressed the scroll wheel. "Thank you for your concern. The compensation given to me by the chairman is already high enough. But it can be higher." Wu Liang finally raised his head, still formulating, "I am very satisfied with the status quo. You are not like someone who is willing to do these little things all the time, I am on you." Sometime, she had already sat next to him, slowly leaning over, and a sweet fragrance came over. I smelled the smell of ambition. After Xiao Fei woke up for a long time, his mind was still chaotic. He had a nightmare and was chased by a dark figure all night. It was useless to escape anywhere. Thinking of the scene in the dream, he shuddered. Because he got up early, he helped Uncle Yu prepare breakfast together, and had breakfast with them in the maids' building. Although Liu Chen yesterday was very kind, but Passerby knows himself, he may not even count as a guest. How can I go to the main building to dine again? After eating, he should wash the dishes with the servant as he should. Although he didn't talk much, this obedient and hard-working teenager was like the air, a comfortable existence. Liu Chen wakes up at a fixed time every day. When he went downstairs, he saw the housekeeper Yu holding a few mops and brooms hesitating. There were automatic and manual ones inside. Liu Chen asked what he was doing. Uncle Yu said good morning to the young master, and said, "When I left yesterday, I forgot that the building was unoccupied for many years." If the young master didn't have cleaning tools, he must be embarrassed to mention it. "I'm going to find a few to give him." "Go with." Liu Chen took a sip of black tea gracefully, opened his long eyelashes like butterfly wings, and smiled, "Withdraw, you should respect his self-reliance." Uncle Yu swallowed. Although he knew that Yao Fei's mother and son would definitely not be seen by the young master really wanted to toss Xiao Fei slowly, the poor child. Did he get up? "It's up after 4 o'clock. Let him come over, bring a breakfast, and cook another glass of milk." Uncle Yu is a little bit unable to understand what his young master means, so he wants to fatten up and then kill it. Yao Fei has gone through the original school formalities for Xiao Fei, but the new school requires an exam and cannot transfer immediately, so Xiao Fei is still working on the exercises these days. When he heard the call, he walked over slowly, and saw that Liu Chen had finished his breakfast, wearing a standard school uniform, looking at the blossoming flowers outside the window. The scenery that can be painted is not as strong as this person. He is like a dynamic oil painting, no amount of color can be described. "Are you a snail? Everything is slow." Xiao Fei lowered his head, like a prisoner waiting to be sentenced, vomiting silently in his heart. He doesn't have to go to class now, so there is no need to hurry. "Why are you standing there? Breakfast is cold." But I have eaten it, who knew you would think of me on a whim?" Liu Chen glanced over, and his clear voice overflowed, "Hey!" Xiao Fei struck a spirit, and immediately changed his words, I'm very hungry." "What am I talking about?" Xiao Fei was a little annoyed, and when facing Liu Chen, he turned on automatic defense. "I can only come to the dining table with Liu Chen's eyes. The loose breakfast is delicious, but no matter how delicious it is, I can't swallow 2 servings." Xiao Fei eats very slowly. He thinks that Liu Chen will be impatient and ignore it. But Liu Chen was just typing on his mobile phone, so he should be chatting. During the period, Uncle Yu sent a package, which was sent by DHL, and Liu Chen motioned to open it. After taking out the well-packaged things inside, Liu Chen was a little surprised, pondered for a while, and whispered, "Who will let it come?" Xiao Fei didn't hear about it. He had to adapt slowly to continue to be a transparent person in front of the male lead. Gradually his gaze was placed on the opposite little transparent body. The man licked the milk stain on his lips without noticing, his red tongue rolled around and retracted into the depths. Liu Chen put down the teacup in his hand, and a few drops of tea came out. As if his hands were not steady. Xiao Fei was still swallowing the food bit by bit, feeling something and bumping into the black eyes. Liu Chen saw that he had eaten a quarter, and interrupted directly, "If you can't eat it, don't eat it. How does the hero know that he won't be able to plug it in soon? Now this is just right to be full, and it won't be uncomfortable." Xiao Fei never thanked the protagonist for a moment. His eyes blinked, and he was a little grateful. He even forgot who was the culprit. Instead, he felt grateful for being masochistic, just like many people who were designed by Liu Chen and were grateful. Knowing that Liu Chen is a master at manipulating people's hearts does not mean that there is a way to resist it when really getting along. Liu Chen stood up, and Uncle Yu handed over his school bag and opened his thin eyelids. "I will be in the restaurant at 6:20 from now on, don't be late again." Xiao's mind was blank, he was a little confused. "Hey? Oh. Will I have to eat with the hero in the future? What kind of grievances they have, if they want to torture him in this way? Don't the male lead know that eating with him is a stress?" However, he did not dare to refute a word, and kept reminding himself that impulse is the devil, and that Passerby and the male protagonist should not cause conflict. Xiao Fei's honest face is a bit good, but it is reluctant in his heart, but it makes no difference. Seeing Xiao Fei's obedient response, he patted his soft head smoothly, his fingers curled, and his soft touch remained. "Let's go, I'm going to be late. But I don't have to go to school." As long as the male lead doesn't trouble him, Xiao Fei will treat himself as a wood. It may not be useful to do so many questions. It is better to go directly to the exam, and then take the exam again. Liu Chen turned his words and looked at Xiao Mupi Tang Fei. "I heard you swear to take the exam." Liu Zhengming donated 2 buildings to the school. At this time, it is not difficult to get a transfer student quota, but which class to go to is ranked according to the score. Except for a few parents who are willing to spend a huge sum of money to give their children a place for the next class all year round. Most of them rely on their own exams. Xiao Fei did have to take the exam. This was an order from Yao Fei to follow Liu Chen at all times. Yes, yes. When did he say it? Xiao Fei doesn't care about himself. The system said that he is equivalent to the maintainer of this parallel space. He does not need to deliberately make up for the hero and the hero. The world will automatically fill in the loopholes in the novel. The characters are real, and the plot and feelings will develop naturally. He is appropriate. So he only intends to be nearby. How could he swear? Can Yao Fei not have such obvious purpose? Can't he really see the Liu family and his son? It's not just sticking to life, and now there is Yao Fei's identity. "Oh, my head hurts." Liu Chen seemed to encourage him. "Then I will wait for you to enter." Xiao Fei. Before leaving, Xiao Fei asked Uncle Yu quietly, "Uncle Yu, is there anything dirty in that building?" Uncle Yu was surprised. "Did you hear those rumors? How could it be possible? They are all nonsense, no one believes them." Xiao Fei. "I believe it, and I still feel it. I knew I would get such a response." "Did you see anything else?" "That's not the case." Xiao Fei drooped his head, and it was useless to say it anyway. When Xiao Fei followed Liu Chen, he called Yao Fei again, and directly reminded him that he was not in the service area. In fact, he was still a little trembling when he got into Liu Chen's car. When he first met, he had only fortunately looked at it a few times and didn't expect to be able to ride. Liu Chen seemed to maintain a demeanor and etiquette to others, but that was within the scope of his permission, and anyone who stepped in without permission would be ruthlessly expelled. Liu Chen didn't ignore Xiao Fei's sitting tightly. "You seem to be afraid of me. Has he done anything, except for the half-truth at first? I think young Master Liu is very good, so how can I be afraid? And my mother asked me to follow you well." "Yes, did you realize that I was so afraid of you?" Xiao Fei answered calmly, and moved out Yao Fei to prove that he was really not afraid, just respect, respect, understand? Liu Chen raised his eyebrows. "Why didn't I see you following me?" When Xiao Fei thought he was not speaking, he suddenly said, "What did you just call me?" It was obviously faint, and there was a slight smile in the ending, but Xiao Fei sat straighter, and instinctively told him not to respond to this question properly. The result was not what he wanted to see. He accidentally yelled out what he was thinking, and Xiao Fei changed his name, Brother Chen. Listening to the soft shout, Liu Chen let out a hum. Then, before Huamo Hotel, will you continue to help conceal what you saw? Xiao Fei couldn't help but start talking when he thought of Yao Fei's life-threatening character. "What's the matter from the hotel?" Liu Chen's words were like a temptation and depraved demon. When Xiao Fei was attracted by his own words and turned his head, he bent over and put a certain pressure on Xiao Fei. "You said it was that." Xiao Fei's heart throbbed, and he dared not move. "It depends on your performance. If you are doing well, I can consider it. What is good performance?" But the 10 sentences of the person in front of him may not always be true, and Xiao Fei was silent. The car turned a turn and finally reached the vicinity of Dijiang High School. Xiao Fei couldn't wait to get out of the car. It seemed that there was some devil's cage here, but he was stopped by the people in the car. He just turned around and saw a magnified picture of jungle with no dead ends. Face. The man's index finger hooked his greasy chin, and put something in his pocket. His thin red lips drew across his eyes, the breath floating on his cheeks, as if even the fluff was about to explode, and a word came out. Don't want your cell phone. After leaving like an electric shock, before he could feel anything, Liu Chen swept away all his breath, staggering Xiao Fei and left. Behind the car, a young girl was walking with a school bag and looked at their direction. Perhaps the tall boy was too eye-catching. Almost when he appeared, other school students on the road couldn't help but look over. But after only one glance, she withdrew her gaze. She could feel the danger of this boy even more than Xia Yun. Yesterday I ran too much, and now my whole body is clamoring for pain. A little bit of action is like soaking bones in a vinegar jar. She set off early today, but it was a bit late when it arrived. Xiao Fei also saw her, the two looked at each other, and the girl smiled politely. The most beautiful woman he has ever seen in this world is his mother. This should be the second one, the face of an angel and the figure of a devil, but this adjective seems a bit familiar. The girl looked at the boy who smiled shyly on the other side, thinking that he was like a glutinous rice cake, cute. The two passed by like all strangers. Today is Monday, and there is a guard at the gate. The student union brought a few students on duty to check on the students' wear. Xiao Fei, who was not wearing school uniform, was stopped. Before the hand of the student on duty was about to touch Xiao Fei's shoulder, it was blocked by a pair of hands. As soon as the male student met Liu Chen, he hurriedly withdrew his hand and explained, "Student Liu, I'm doing a routine checkup." Liu Chen's sharp gaze receded and returned to his indifferent appearance, his thin lips slightly opened. "Transfer students, come to take the entrance exam today. Dijiang College is open from daycare to high school. The campuses are separated." Liu Chen is a man of the world from childhood to most. Others did not expect that Jialing's Hua, who has always been nosy, would intervene in other people's affairs. Everyone winked secretly, and quickly conveyed a message that Liu Chen knew this transfer student. Passerby is not used to being noticed by so many people. He lowered his head to study the ground patterns, but he still couldn't stop the sight of those who fell on him to explore. After doing a simple registration, the two people were allowed to leave. The chairman saw that the others were still whispering, and his eyes were still peeking at the two who left. To be precise, it was Liu Chen. "Look at these high school students in the first and second year of high school. Sister, I don't want to study hard, I'm dreaming about those things all day long. Don't chat, it's 8:10 in 15 minutes, take a good time." Only the girl near them stopped, vaguely heard the words Liu Chen, and realized, isn't this the name of her benefactor? Liu Chen took Xiao Fei to the dean's office and asked him to take the exam before leaving, just like a good brother. The head of the department was surnamed Su. He was a little older, thin, with heavy eyes, and very pedantic. He was very dignified when he was stern. He slapped a paper. "Are you Liu Chen's younger brother?" "No. Teacher Su thinks about it, the last names are different, and he has never heard of relatives with the surname Xiao in the Liu family. He probably guessed something. Dong Liu has already mentioned your transfer to the school manager, but this is not your slack. Reason, the exam must be taken well, and I will not release water for you." "Okay, trouble Mr. Su." Xiao Fei is still a little nervous, he hasn't taken the formal test yet. Teacher Su saw that his attitude was very good, and his voice was mild. "Follow me to building number 3 and take the exam there." Liu Chen returned to the classroom of grade 1 and grade 3. Before ringing the bell for early self-study, the classroom was very lively. As soon as he stepped in, he became quiet, and then became lively again. but many girls were watching intentionally or unintentionally. In his direction, Liu Chen had been accustomed to all kinds of gazes since he was a child, and he came to the last position. Putting down his school bag, Luo Yufei in the front row smiled and said, "Let me just say, you broke up with the Empress and the bees are coming around again, but the Empress hasn't come today, so you say she won't make any news." Liu Chen took out the Bluetooth headset to block the noise around him, and even the expression was lazy to score him, not interested. After ringing the morning self-study bell, the Chinese teacher walked into the classroom and asked the students to turn to the text that needed to be recited yesterday. He saw Liu Chen, who was immersed in his own world, in the back row. If they can maintain their grades in the top 3 in each academic year and respect their teachers at ordinary times, it is impossible for them as teachers to look for things for no reason. There are not many such students. It is normal not to listen to the lectures. You will only listen to the lectures after seeing a few days of. I played with a miniature ball in my hand, made of metal, which would automatically attract magnetism. This is a bug. Just now when the two passed by, he put another one into Xiao Fei's phone. Of course, the frivolous gesture of hooking the face was just to divert Xiao Fei's attention and facilitate his actions. These are the semi-finished products that Wu Liang sent in the morning. They are new products developed by his network company. As for why the test subject chose Xiao Fei, one was that it was easy to get close to him, the other was that he happened to observe their mother and child, the third was that he ran into it unluckily, and the fourth was, he is willing.